how do they come up with these little guys? This game is just like abundant in them.
I guess before we get into things, how do you feel about the Game Awards?
Oh boy, the Game Awards.
Without saying too much, because I will say, the Game Awards, for better or for worse, is consistent. So
yeah,
even if like there are criticisms I have, it's like I at least know what to expect and can go in knowing that.
Yeah, we're there and we know why we're there.
Mm-hmm. But
I'm
losing it at the Fumito Ueda game. I'm very excited for that.
Are you talking about the new Ico thing?
Yes.
The new Last Guardian joint? That looked great, didn't it?
Yeah. I like a game with a vibe. That's got a vibe.
You know what's funny? I was watching that new Elden Ring standalone game. And looking at the trailer going, Elden Ring fangs, you can show them like just nonsense fantasy and they'll just lose their shit over it. And then they show this trailer, which is nonsense sci-fi, and I'm losing my shit over it.
Mm-hmm.
Like the trailer doesn't tell you anything, but you're stoked. You're like, whoa, what is happening?
Listen, a lot of storytelling is just vibes.
It is. We talked about this in our first episode.
No, the Elden Ring one is funny because like I've seen like a professional trailer editor go like, look, I make a lot of trailers for indie games. Don't do the lore trailer. The only ones that can do this are Elden Ring, and that's just because they've built this up for years.
Yep, that's what I'm saying. They don't have to tell you anything. People know exactly what they're gonna get.
I don't know if you saw like actually what that game is, but it is kind of interesting.
Could you explain it for me? Because I actually had no idea what the game is.
So it is a largely like asset reuse game that will not impede the development of the current big project they're working on.
Oh, I see.
And basically it's almost like a fan mod of Elden Ring. It's taking the core gameplay, but sort of speeding up the combat a little bit and upping the movement speed and like jumping and things like that.
Gotcha.
And it is using elements of like Fortnite, where you're like dropping in on a big map that's shrinking, and you're fighting like a boss every night, which is sort of a 15-minute stretch of gameplay. And you get upgrades, you get equipment, and so it's almost basically like using the core of Elden Ring to make like a Hades style game that can play up to 3 players co-op. It looks really cool, actually. And I'm all for them just throwing stuff to the wall and see what sticks. Because, like, people are already modding Elden Ring to play like that, so...
I see. See, this has no effect on me. I'm just not, like, into the Soulsborne stuff.
Mm.
It looks nice, and I'm happy for y'all. But, again, I saw it, and I'm like, I don't know what's going on. It's just dudes.
I guess to put it into perspective to you, like, this is a company that's not necessarily known for having, like, very clean multiplayer connections, but still trying anyways, and now they're making, like, a fully, like,
really
meant to be multiplaer game, so I'm excited to see what that means.
I just think it's funny that you called it Elden Ring Fortnite.
I mean, you drop in on a map, and, like, there's a shrinking ring, like... I know a Fortnite when I see a Fortnite.
Instead of the battle bus, they're driven in by the combat vessel. I don't know.
Yeah, the battle barge.
Yeah, call it some Soulsborne thing, please.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so that was cool though. I'm glad that Elden Ring Fangs has something, or I guess FromSoft in general fans have something while they wait on the next thing. Even though
that's all it is a delicious snack.
Didn't you guys just get Armored Core 6, though? Aren't you happy with that?
Yeah, and we'll get DLC for that soon, probably.
All right, okay. What else got you hyped, though, other than that?
Onimusha looks cool, only because it looks like it's using the current RE engine, so it'll be, like, a little slower, I think.
Yeah, I'm kind of hoping it's a little faster paced, actually. Like like Devil May Cry pace.
Mm.
If I'm being honest.
Yeah. I guess by slower I mean like there are weightier movements to your actions, you know.
Onimusha was already kind of slower paced, like the original.
Yeah.
So maybe that's on purpose. I don't know. What got me excited though was the return of Virtua Fighter.
Yeah, I saw that and I'm like happy for Jorge.
I'm telling you, like Virtua Fighter is one of the few fighting games I still play. I prefer it over Tekken. I know we're comparing to 3D fighters here, and they're not necessarily the same thing, but Virtua Fighter's more my speed. Plus, I have more attachment to it than I do Tekken.
Yeah, I think we're eating good with fighters right now. They're in a good space.
Fighters always eaten good ever since Street Fighter 4. Like
that's true.
And the thing is, like, we're eating too good lately. Like, I can't play all these new games, and even if I was like still in my fighting game phase, I would not be playing all these games every time a new one comes out. That's just ridiculous. I gotta get good at one of them. I can't keep playing all of them.
Yeah, I really want to try to see if I like the two-hit KO League of Legends fighting game, because I'm very curious what they're going to try to do to corner the esports fighting game market. But we'll see. I don't know. I hope it's good.
I don't like League of Legends.
I don't like League of Legends either, but I like Arcane. So they're different.
Sure, whatever you say. Still not watching it.
That's fine.
Sorry. Well, I don't know, Kyle. The Game Awards kind of left me wanting a little more.
Well, I mean, you know historically what comes after the Game Awards, right?
Me going to sleep?
It is always funny what like they always cut to something afterwards, some stream, and they think they should just like randomly raid like another small streamer. That would be really funny. Just someone with like two people in their thing playing like Zelda, like Majora's Mask randomizer gets like the full Game Awards on there. Just some like random trans girl.
Like how many? I don't know how many viewers was this year. Like, is it in the like 5 digits? Maybe
thousands.
Hundreds of thousands. Yeah, you're like Game Awards just rated you, and you're like, oh hey, how's everybody? Yeah. And suddenly you're looking at like 6-digit viewer count, and Geoff Keighleys there too.
Mm-hmm. But yes, we are Brain Lords, Video Games of the Mind, a panel discussion between artists and the art they love. I'm your co-host, Kyle.
And I'm Jorge.
And tonight we are presenting you the UFO 50 Game Awards.
That's right. This is what I've been missing, Kyle. I wanted nothing but UFO 50 in my awards show.
We have had the grace of over 49 games released alone this year by UFO Soft.
These are games that have been out, but were recently unearthed and rediscovered and made available to all of us.
Yes, if Among Us can get awards 3 years after it's released, then so can UFO Soft.
I mean, we almost had Elden Ring win again.
Listen, it was a big enough game. It's fine. It's fine. It was its own succinct piece of storytelling, gameplay, and immersion to have. Anyways, I'm getting inside myself because we're here to celebrate UFO Soft and all their amazing accomplishments. So tonight, Jorge, can you explain to us what we're doing tonight?
We are going to present the awards for these games and the ones they won and stuff. Mm-hmm. We're gonna award for each category that the Game Awards had. We're gonna give UFO 50 their own award.
So yes, why don't we just jump straight into it then?
Go ahead, Kyle. You start us first.
All right. Well, we're in the pre-show right now where we rattle off about 6 or 8 awards that apparently no one cares about.
Is that what we're doing?
Listen, we're just doing. All right. Anyway, our first award is Best Adaptation. The nominees are Cyber Owls, and Camouflage.
We're
The
going
winner
straight into it.
is Cyber Owls.
Yeah!
Now, unfortunately, we have none of the developers of UFO Soft in the audience, so accepting the awards right now will be Kyle and Jorge.
Yes.
I've also gotten a note from Geoff Keighleys who says, I'm sorry, and we can talk as much as we want.
Nice. Oh, thanks, Geoff. That's awesome.
So, Jorge, what do you have to say about Cyber Owls?
I want to smooch some of those owls, I guess. Cyber
it's good
owls.
Character design.
It is, and I think it is interesting how we're starting off with like the last game in the chronology of UFO 50, the LX system. The LX3, I believe, was the last one.
What do you think that's trying to say? Like having their last game be a licensed game?
I guess that it's hard to say, because usually when this happens, there is a little bit of a light at the end of the tunnel, and not the kind that we like, but rather like a sign of the end of things. They had a good run, and to be fair, Cyber Owls was a banger, so like they ended on a good note.
Yeah, no, I think Cyber Owls is like it's simultaneously like the LJN appreciation game, being like multiple games in one. Because like a lot of those licensed games were just like every level is just throwing something to the ball, like to the wall, and seeing what sticks. Like for each level, but also yeah, it's doing a lot actually, because like I feel like that's also sort of their game that's meant to be the like we've got the sound chip installed game. Like Castlevania 3 style.
Yeah.
Because they have like the audio sampling.
It is. Isn't this the only game with voice acting in it?
It
on
is,
the LX3?
yes.
Wow.
So it's doing that. It's doing like the multiple characters, like LJN, like licensed game. It's kind of its own little like Action 50, because it's got so many different game types. Like it's doing a lot.
Oh, you mean UFO 50 in general? Like
yeah, like it's its own mini UFO 50, which I think is really cool.
It's a UFO 50 within a UFO 50. That's crazy. What I like about Cyber Owls is like the different genres. Like you said, you were saying there's like a lot of games in it already, but this one does feel like each level is its own genre, and it's almost a little too ambitious in my opinion. How I guess it is like the last hurrah, so they just went out guns blazing. There's a beat 'em up level, there's a shoot 'em up level, there's a espionage like classic Metal Gear style level, and then there's like I believe the other one is like a turbo tunnel thing where like you're on a bike or something.
Yeah.
It even within this game compilation, this is a lot, and it's well done. It's great. But it's a little overwhelming.
Yeah, if anything, I feel like the game's biggest weakness is just none of the individual games are very fleshed out, but it's just kind of cool to have the variety.
Yeah. Oh, Kyle, tell us, why did this win Adaptation?
Well, it's one of the only things that have been adapted from outside fiction. Yeah,
That's right. Wasn't this a comic originally?
Yeah, actually, so maybe to back up just a slight amount, why don't we take just a brief moment to explain UFO 50 for maybe someone who might be listening to this, but...
why are you here?
This is a Game of the Year list,
Right.
Yeah. You gotta. People like Game of the Year lists, even if they don't know the games. But, I guess for those not in the know, UFO 50 is a collection of 50 fully fleshed out video games from a fictional developer called UFO Soft.
Fictional?
It's meant to take from a real life developer. That's supposedly takes place like through like the late 80s.
86 to 89, I believe.
Yeah. And it is a very loving recreation of what games were of that time, but using interesting decisions on what modern sensibilities to take. So there are games that are very much like, this is a Pac-Man style game, but it's done in a way that maybe controls a little bit better, or isn't sending you back as much on a death, or is using elements that are more popularized in modern genres and genre conventions. But it still is, I think, more than a lot of games like even Shovel Knight, that are known for being retro throwbacks. This is a very, very loving recreation of that era. It is extremely faithful to both the highs and the lows.
Yeah, and that's what I love about it. I like how much it pays tribute to the rough edges of retro gaming as much as it does like the things we celebrate constantly.
Yeah. But it's just enough of the rough edges to just point out that it was there and it's something worth loving. But like they're going to do like something that's more of a spin on like Spelunky, which is not something that there was like language developed for as far as game development was concerned in like the late 80s. So it's just it was just one of our, like, it's probably your favorite game of the year, and it's extremely high on my list as well, and I think it's worth celebrating because I think a lot of people agree that it's very good, but there's so much going on here because there are 50 legitimately fully fleshed out games in this, that it can be easy to skip over the fact, easy to skip over just how like much is going on in this collection. Because there is like a whole backstory to this company, and each of the games has a little bit of narrative going on to make you feel like it's like, that's what sold me on the game even more than just wanting to play Derek Yu doing 50 video games with some other developers, was the fact that this is a fictional console and it has a legacy.
I'm sorry, it's a real console.
It's a real console with a real legacy and real lore videos, a lot of lore videos.
I appreciate this too, how it not only wants to capture the beauty of like retro gaming and the you know, the not so beautiful parts of retro gaming, but also something that it does that I don't think it gets enough praise for is it replicates the experience of discovering a new console that you never heard of or that you've never played when you were little. And it kind of celebrates, I'm not going to say the E word, but it celebrates the preservation of these consoles, of these games that would otherwise be lost to time.
And like, even though we'll be talking a lot about these games in depth, like there is such a joy to be had just trying them out for the first time.
Yeah, exactly.
And all of the games sort of do a really good job of nailing this difficulty curve where they can be a little intimidating starting out, but like
as retro games were.
Yeah, but as you have a real like plateau of mastery where like once you just get just good enough, the game just like the difficulty flattens out and you just feel like you've mastered this game. And
that was a very unique quality of retro gaming, is that a lot of these games were not long and they still cost a lot of money, so they had to be difficult in order to pad out playtime. But the objective or what was asked of the player was to keep at it until you got good enough to play it all the way through.
Yeah, while your playtime on a game might last a few hours, once you've sort of solved the game, you can beat it in a very short amount of time.
Yeah.
A lot of the games are like that. Or you can play it without dying.
So it feels daunting, but the point is to persevere until you master the game. And that was what the gameplay flow was back then. It wasn't about length. It was more about practice, about getting better at it.
I feel like a lot of
these games capture that.
So many of these games have been so finely honed that I really do feel like they knew exactly how much time needed to be put into them.
Yeah.
Wow. I'm getting the wrap up signal from Geoff. He's looking a little stressed. He's pulling at his collar.
Yeah, the prompter says wrap it up. Sorry.
The Muppets are throwing sticks and stones at him like enemies in Indiana Jones.
I thought it was funny when Geoff said the Muppets. That one. He just chuckles and goes, the Muppets. Sorry, Geoff, I had to bring that up because it made me chuckle. Anyway.
Let's get on to our next award. Our next award is for innovations in accessibility. We have Mooncat, with its buttons being, with left and right being accessible from every different button on the controller.
That game has 2 buttons.
It has 2 buttons, but really it has 8 buttons.
No.
And Camouflage, with being able to be played while colorblind. The award goes to Camouflage.
Yo, we gotta have a little build up to this.
Excuse me.
You can't just announce the winner. You gotta open the envelope. You gotta pull out the letter.
Okay. This is my first award show.
Sorry.
I'm doing a lot better than Aaron Paul did. Thank you.
Oh, okay. Oh.
We're talking for less time than they did too.
Camouflage is the winner. Okay, got it. Yes, Camouflage. This is I actually didn't know about this, Kyle, that you could play this game colorblind.
I checked, and each of the so Camouflage is a stealth puzzle game where you play as a lizard that can change colors to the different
He's a funny little guy.
tiles, and there are predators that you need to watch out for.
Ooh, scary.
But yeah, no, each of the different colored tiles also have a texture. So like the sand is beige and it has dots on it. The grass is green and has little waves on it. So yes, you can play this game colorblind, which is not something that a retro game would consider.
True, actually, yeah. I feel like colorblind options for games are a relatively new thing. Do you agree?
Absolutely. There's still people are very much struggling to consider this because it's not something that you would think about if you don't have experience with it. And like, not to generalize, but a lot of Japanese games especially have been lagging behind on considering different means of being accessible.
You know, you say that, but like one of the first games that I found out has colorblind options is Puyo Puyo Tetris.
Really?
Yeah. You can actually turn that game into colorblind mode, and it'll change the colors of the blobs. Yeah, so that's pretty cool.
I think I may also just be talking more generally about it. Like a lot of Nintendo games have such little means of changing how you play. Which, yeah, like Camouflage, you can't change anything about it. It just works.
So it's actually like based on the textures is how like that's the colorblind accessibility to it.
It's already basically in colorblind mode.
Oh, I see. So it doesn't actually change the colors. You just use. Oh, okay. All right.
You would just look at the texture. Like I haven't asked a friend of mine who is red-green colorblind, but I would imagine that they're distinct enough to where you can tell what you are.
My friend Mike is colorblind, and he's like really good at Smash, and so he plays games like, and he's the first one who told me all about this, like how some games just don't accommodate for that stuff. Okay, can I do the next one?
Please.
All right. So our next category is community support, with our only nominee being Star Waspir. Hold on, please. Let me open the envelope. Okay. The winner is Star Waspir.
Wow, congratulations,
yes,
Star
congratulations.
Waspir.
Yes.
Amazing.
So tell us, Kyle.
Yes, this is the only game to have any sort of updates that weren't bug fixes.
I thought that was interesting. I didn't know that any of these games got patched post-release.
It's a lot of just little things like Pilot Quest will have it to where like, oh, we made it so this NPC gets out of your way, just or like this thing doesn't break when you do XYZ. Like almost none of the games have had any sort of balance patches or anything like that. So which, you know, maybe that the games just work as intended and all, or maybe just like, no, we're sticking to our guns. These games just are the way that they are. We'll just fix it so, you know, the game doesn't break when you try to win and you can't roll credits because some soft locked or something. But yeah, and I guess speaking more broadly about Star Waspir, which like I did like a lot. It's a very classic style vertical shoot 'em up. The gimmick being that when you blow up enemies, different letters E or G will pop out, and depending on what you spell or match, you get bonuses, power ups, or score multipliers. It definitely is like a more modern style of shmup game, but like it is scrolling at a much faster rate than any games of that era would.
Like I'm surprised. What year was it? 1988. I'm surprised this is a 1988 release because I feel like shoot 'em ups on home console didn't start modernizing until like the 1990.
Yeah, think of like how slow a lot of those early, especially like NES Gradiuses were. Like they were not designed to.
Those were slow just because of the pacing of them was meant to be that way because your weapons were also firing slower. it wasn't until I want to say like Gunnak came out where like power-ups started getting more crazy. Like you started getting like the homing weapons and like faster movement or schmovement. I just think that term is funny. I want to use it whenever I can.
Please.
And yeah, like I recommend, if you've never played it, I recommend Gunnak. It's I feel like it's when console shoot 'em up started getting more modern. Same with Summer Carnival. Is it Summer Carnival or Summer Festival Rekka? That was on the NES and for 1991, I think. That was like a competition cart in Japan that was like also a shoot 'em up on the NES, but it ran like a modern arcade shooter. It's actually really impressive. If you've never played it, I recommend it. Like you will not believe it's an NES game. It's really cool.
Yeah, I'll have to check that out.
Yeah.
Well, let's get on to our next award. This is our Player's Voice Award. We've polled anywhere from 2 to 6 billion people.
Wow.
And we have, a number between that too.
That's amazing.
And the gamers have chosen.
The gamers have chosen, yeah.
Yeah, our nominees are Avianos, Camouflage, and Party House. And the award goes to Party House.
Oh, we knew this was gonna happen.
Yeah, I feel House. Like everyone universally loves Party House. Like I was going through, I decided to look at like 8 or 10 different tier list videos, or just tier lists that people had made.
Oh, you mean the polls we did, right? Like the
the polls that the very real polls that we did.
The 2 billion people
between 2
polled.
and 6 billion people that we polled.
Oh my god, this many people played UFO 50, folks.
Yeah, no, I think universally, like, people just love Party House, and for good reason. Like, it's just a really solid deck builder game that just works.
That is kind of the surprising thing about Party House. When you first play it, or when you first fire it up, you don't expect it to be essentially a deck builder game.
So for those not in the know, Party House is a deck building game, a non-roguelike deck builder game in which you're trying to throw the best party by inviting random guests from your Rolodex. And each guest has different attributes that get you money or popularity. And each round, you use money or popularity to expand your house or invite new, more powerful guests.
More powerful guests.
Yeah.
With their power is measured by popularity. So the more popular your guests, the more points you get, so you can invite even more popular guests.
With the end goal being affording affording a guest with a star ability, and if you have 4 stars,
the most popular guests,
then you have thrown a successful party. Right.
There's a catch, however. Some of these guests are up to no good.
And if you have too much trouble,
you're gonna get the cops called on you, or you're gonna get the fire marshal sent to your house.
Yeah, if a person has an ability that brings a guest and they overfill your house
by one person,
they're counting. But no, it's such a simple game because it's funny. Like when you start the game, you're like you'll check the controls and it's like press X to invite a guest, press like A to cancel or whatever.
Yeah,
and you really do just have to like. You stumble around for a couple minutes because you're like, what am I even doing in this game?
Oh yeah, the first few times you play this, you have no idea what's going on.
Yeah, I was struggling a bit, but no, you don't need to look up a guide. Like it very naturally just sort of like introduces itself to you, and I do think that is an elegance that might be, overlooked on it.
This quality is present in a lot of the games in UFO 50. You have to be okay with failure. You have to be okay with losing a couple times just to figure out what the game is. And again, that's one of the qualities that people don't really consider good in retro gaming, but was an essential part of the experience.
Yeah, and I think there is a joy to be had with like that initial moment where you're fumbling and then you have that aha click moment.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
Party House does that so quick, and I think part of the reason it's so successful is that like you can do a randomized run where you get a different batch of guests that you can possibly invite to your party.
Oh, yeah, yeah. So for context, the first 4 stages are a fixed deck, but then the final stages are randomized. So you don't know what guests you're gonna get. You have to devise strategies on the fly and figure out what the synergy of each card is, or sorry, each guest is, and it kind of keeps you on your toes that way. And you know what the cool thing is that a lot of the I keep saying cards, but that's what it
The
is.
cards.
A lot of the guests have synergy with many other guests, and when you figure out these combos, that's the winning ticket. These are very entertaining to figure out, especially when you don't know what to expect. And also, I just want to point out, this game has the cutest characters in probably the entire collection.
They're all the little party goers are all very cute. Although
I
it's funny
know.
when the cops come because I've got too much trouble. There's like one guy in particular with a messy shirt that I'm like always, even though it doesn't matter who you boot out. If you want to boot out a troublemaker, like
Yeah,
usually you've got like 3 of the same type of card, but they just look different. And there's
I
like
know. I love
one
that.
guy I'm always booting out. I don't know why. I just don't like him.
Yeah, yeah. But I really like how much, and you point out something that brings this to light. I really like how much care and love was given to each character. I don't know. They all look unique. They're all fun.
Yeah,
And even
it's
even the duplicates have like different graphics. I don't know. I think that kind of detail is fun.
the term is top down, where you're like coming up with a
Oh,
way to justify a theme. And so yeah, all the party guests party goers are like the social climber, and like every time you invite them they get a little bit more powerful because they're like climbing in status. Or like the introvert gets you more points the more empty your house is without enter
yeah.
party.
But you can do really interesting things like the introvert. If you get the introvert first, you have to end the party because that's the best bonus.
Yeah,
And he's the only
well,
one. He gets
you have
bonuses
to
for
think
being
of
alone.
Yeah, you have to think of it this way. Each space empty in your house is worth 1 popularity point. So
Yeah, yeah.
you have to sort of decide, is my next guest worth 2 or more points? Because if it is, then
Right.
numbers wise. So yeah, there's a lot going on in that game, and
I recommend it.
I can see why people respond to it well, because it just plays like a really good board game. And I don't know if you knew this, Jorge, but um,
Oh.
the developers that consulted on
Ooh.
UFO 50, Derek Yu and the 5 or so others. I think Derek Yu and a couple others like got into board game development in between some of their games, so you can really tell.
I see. Okay. Yeah, this feels like a board game. This feels like it could be a board game, huh?
It does.
Ah. Okay.
So why don't we get on to our next award, Jorge?
Oh, yes, of course. The best debut indie is our next award. The nominees are Night Manor, Barbuta, and Bug Hunt. Drumroll, please. All right. The winner is Night Manor.
Oh, so you
Tell us.
haven't played too much of Nightmare yet, have
Yeah, I
you?
was actually gonna hand it off to you because like Night Manor is kind of the blind spot for me. It's the one game I haven't played in the collection.
So yeah, for those not in the know, Night Manor is a classic adventure style game made to work fairly cleanly for like an NES controller. You're exploring a spooky house. The main gimmick of it is that you can spot a killer, and when you do, you need to escape. But in order to escape, you need to select, the back arrow to leave the room, and
Oh,
your cursor starts vibrating violently,
ooh,
and sort of pulling itself away from you. So it's a nice little atmospheric touch that it's such a little effect, but it adds a lot. And then you do a little mini game to run away, and then a little mini game to hide, and
oh, that's cool.
yeah. Otherwise, it's a fairly straightforward. Find the key that lets you unlock the thing that gets you another key. Find some notes that give you some backstory on, like, oh, I my therapist told me to write down how my days are going as a means to help myself. Even innocuous things. So I'm writing everything down, and then you
Yeah.
learn the story of this person who is slowly, seemingly getting losing their grips on their sanity from some outside influences. So the story is pretty straightforward, and in the world of UFO Soft, This is Greg Milk's debut game. He'd been working at
Oh.
the company for a number of years, and you find out you can find out through some means that he's a fan of horror, even though they get scared easily. And so Night Manor is meant to be kind of a labor of love to that.
Greg Milk also, I hear, has a love of scavenger hunts.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, it very much is like honestly, it is kind of like the Resident Evil of the batch.
Yeah, that's kind of the vibe I got from it. I don't know if you remember a game called Sweet Home.
Yeah.
Yeah, kind of. That's kind of
Love
how
Sweet Home.
A little bit felt that, and felt a little bit of the old. Oh my god. Why am I blanking out? The Jason, the
Splatterhouse?
No, no, literally Jason.
Yeah, it's good. Oh, goodness
Why are we
gracious.
both forgetting this?
Friday
the 13th, which was yesterday. That's funny.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I get a little bit of those. The first person view scenes.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, I kind of felt that. So great. Thank you for enlightening us with this. I'm glad you played Night Manor because I didn't.
Yeah, I would say it's not necessarily it's not a game that's really breaking anything, doing anything new. It's just a good combination of things that just really it just really works for what it's trying to do.
All right. Okay, Kyle. Let's go to our next category.
Our next category is Best Ongoing Game. The nominees are Pilot Quest. And the winner is Pilot Quest.
Yeah, I think.
So Pilot Quest is...
I want to talk about this one, yeah.
Yeah, the reductive this meets that is Pilot Quest is Cookie Clicker meets The Legend of Zelda.
Ooh. Oh. I felt that one.
Yes,
well,
it's a game where you crash land on a planet.
Yes.
And in order to explore a very limited overworld... Okay, this is something I think is genuinely very clever about it. In order to explore a very limited overworld, you're given a much stricter resource that you have to sort of grind for. These moondrops buy you meat, and meat gives you time, and enemies also damage you, which subtract on your time.
Meat does give me time.
Meat gives you time. But I feel like without that time crunch, which normally people do not like time limitations in games, but without that, this game would feel so small. But it's able to make the game feel so much more dangerous, so much more mysterious, so much bigger by having this little limitation on you.
I agree that is the most clever aspect of it, because it is a game about exploring a foreign planet. Even though it says Return to Zoldath, because I believe there's it has kind of a spiritual prequel. Do you remember the name of that game? The one where Pilot debuts in?
That is technically it's Planet Zoldath.
It's just called Planet Zoldath. Yeah. So
yeah.
Pilot Quest is kind of a spiritual sequel to that. And
yeah, it's almost like an HD remake.
The meat mechanic gives you that feeling of exploring a foreign planet, which I really like too.
Yeah. It like I said, it just feels a little dangerous.
Yeah, exactly.
You're just trying to figure out where to go, and it's just big enough to where it feels big without being too big. You can reasonably explore it, and if you fail, you're not set back too far.
So yeah, Kyle, I feel like we both, even though Pilot Quest is one of the more popular titles in UFO 50, I think we both have kind of a love-hate relationship with it.
Yeah, I have very...
I kind of want to go into.
Yeah, positive and very negative feelings about it. It is, I think, the game that is borrowing the most from modern titles.
I agree,
because this is absolutely a clicker game, in the sense that in the lore of UFO Soft, this was the first game to use your LX3's internal clock. So the game can be running things while you're not even playing it. So actually, I was lucky, and I had a friend tell me, hey, play a couple of the games first, then play Pilot Quest, then play the rest of the games chronologically. Because you want to be able to have the game running so that you don't have to just constantly play it in order to progress.
So the thing about that is that it's a game that requires a literal farming.
You're gaining different resources at
moondrops.
Yeah.
So moondrops are your resource in the game, And the way it works is you either smash a little crystal in the middle of your hub area to just get moondrops at a very slow pace. And then with those, you can plant seeds that just generate moondrops.
Yeah.
And at first, this seems very tedious and time-consuming, but the objective is for you to switch the game off and then go play something else within UFO 50, because while you're doing this, the game is still generating moondrops in Pilot Quest.
Yeah, and then eventually you can build a house, which invites different little alien critters that can get you... they can spend their spare time at a bench to craft ingots, and ingots
they're
can
adorable,
buy
by
buildings.
the way. They're very funny.
It is very cute, yeah.
Oh, yeah, the whole game, I should say, like, one of the positives of the game is that it's visually probably the most, like, appealing of the games, in my opinion.
Oh, yeah. No, it's a cute as hell game. It
has the most polish in terms of graphics. I think that I really like the use of color theory. I was gonna say, like, the fact that the grass is blue and your character is red is an inspired decision. Like, I really love how the game uses color theory. Visually, it's the most appealing.
Yeah, it has a lot of the limitations of the NES palette. You know, some games much more than others, but they really know what they're doing in terms of like how to balance those in a way that's very visually pleasing. But yeah, I think this is a game that it's pulling a lot of the negatives of modern game design, where I think we've really figured out how to make games compelling by addictive loops. You know, getting into that. A lot of people call it flow state. I liken it to the machine zone, which is a term for gambling. Usually it's when you're like continuing something for you're playing something for the sake of continuing it, not for the sake of winning.
Right, and this is I think what we both feel kind of loses us a little bit, where the experience becomes a little grindy, regardless of whether or not you like spend time in other games.
Yeah.
Even coming back to Pilot Quest, like, you're only granted such a degree of progress that just doesn't feel like a lot every time you revisit it.
Because like grinding, I think is a very loaded word, where it just sort of has a universally negative connotation to it. Where I feel like sometimes grinding can be very relaxing. You know, you're getting steady progress. But this is a game that's very much like gating your progress in a way that is kind of making a compulsion to come back to it. And there are moments where I felt like I would just keep checking back on Pilot Quest in a way that like felt a little unhealthy, frankly.
Yeah, like instead of enjoying your time away from Pilot Quest, you're kind of just filling time before you play Pilot Quest again.
Yeah. And it's a good, like, we have a lot of positive things to say about it, but I think it really highlighted to me the difference between a lot more modern game design and
this is the most modern of the games, and this is why a lot of people now like it. Like, Pilot Quest ends up being one of the most popular ones. In fact, whenever like a lot of the fan art I see of UFO 50 is either Pilot Quest or Alpha from like Valbrace and stuff, and that's for good reason. Pilot Quest has one of the more appealing aesthetics. The pilot character is extremely iconic and adorable. Like it lends itself to fan art. But yeah, maybe we should talk about the positives for a little bit so that we can kind of balance out this little review we're doing.
Yeah. I cannot, like, I get that main theme stuck in my head so much. It is so poppin'.
Oh my god, yeah, the Overworld theme is fantastic. I was telling you earlier, like, if a soundtrack of just Pilot Quest came out, I would get it. It's extremely well done.
Yeah, no, it just feels like, and like, you know, as much as you feel like your progress is limited, when you feel like you get a meaningful upgrade, it feels so good.
Yeah, I really like the overworld layout. I love that there's dungeons. I love that there is like a true sense, and we went into this earlier, I love that there is a sense of exploration, and the time limit actually makes that even more thrilling. Like, these are the good aspects of it. I love that there's secrets in the world. Like, every once in a while you run into this like weird guy that's just walking around and you have to like fight him. And I remember when I first saw that, it happened way later. Like, I didn't get him until later. And it just shocked me. I was like, what is going on? Like, that kind of thing. Again, I miss that stuff. I miss not knowing things about games. And that moment captured what I like about that.
Yeah, and something I really like about the game is that like it's the overworld is not a randomly generated level. Like it is a very curated experience. So if you know what you're doing, you can repeat that and get better at it. And even between runs, like it doesn't change. So it really lets you get a sense of mastery in a way that I think a lot of these more unlimited play games you know, are sort of always sort of Skinner boxing some new seed in front of you. This is not doing that necessarily. It's just compelling you to want to play it. But like figuring out, you know, its mysteries is really compelling.
Correct. I agree with that aspect. But yeah, I think it's a little bit weighed down by more modern sensibilities, which both of us aren't really big fans of. And the thing is that like we expected a lot out of this game because it was one of the most hyped ones in the collection. And that's just not our speed, I guess. But
yeah. So let's get to our next award, Jorge.
All right. Best audio design. The nominees are Miasma Tower, Minnie and Max, and Night Manor. And the winner is Minnie and Max. Let's go.
Yeah. So Minnie and Max, for those not in the know, is a Metroidvania-style game in which your sister is throwing a party. And in fact, you can hear the background music for Party House. I don't know if you noticed that.
What? Okay. Now I know why you picked this as best audio design. That's kind of crazy.
Yeah, it plays a muffled version of the Party House theme.
Oh my god. There's just these little... Okay, so... This game is, or a UFO 50 collection. It's just filled with little Easter eggs from each game. They have like a symbiosis that is just like so, I don't know. It builds upon its own world so well in little subtle ways. I love that.
Yeah. So the actual gameplay of Minnie and Max is you are locked in the closet by your sister while she throws a party.
That's mean.
And you learn that you have the ability to shrink by crouching.
Oh yeah.
So each tile of this closet, whether it's like the lamp, the bookshelf with the board games on it, the bookshelf with like a piggy bank on it, each of these little tiles is a full-on small level. So it's sort of a Metroidvania that's like completely open to you. You can go to almost any portion of it immediately. And you're trying to collect different items and power-ups in order to escape through the closet, through the closet door.
It is rather ambitious for what it is. Like, when you first play, you don't expect it to be this deep, but the fact that you can shrink and there is just another world under the world represented in pixel form, it kind of nails it.
Yeah, and so like without getting into like not too much to spoil here, but without getting too much into the game, you have this moment of like, whoa, this map is so big and I can go anywhere. And there's a moment in that game where it doubles down on that even more. And the world's even more than you thought it could be. And it's just such a cool little take on a Metroidvania. And to be fair, like of retro games, like Metroidvanias, even though as a genre that didn't come to existence until after Metroid and Castlevania, there are earlier games that do play like, you know, Symphony of the Night just before that game came out. You know, Goonies 2, and a lot of others of that era. I'm trying to think of some that immediately come to mind. But they have that sort of that open level select that you can do.
Eight Eyes comes to mind, although you can select the level before you go to it. That was kind of a Castlevania clone. Can you talk more about why this is best audio design?
Like I hinted at earlier with the muffled effects, it has just a lot of these different little sound cues from other games. So like when you go into the board games, or like one of the board games is a cowboy themed board game, and it's very much like pulling from one of the other cowboy themed games, and it's doing its theme. So it's a good game for like rewarding you for having played these other games, and it just has a lot going on. Like you can shrink into areas that are like very small and desolate and dangerous feeling, and you can go to like more fun areas, and it's just, I don't know, it's got a lot of none of these games have a lot of music tracks, a lot of things going on because they're just very simple by design. And so Mini and Max just surprises me with just how much is thought out with it.
Yeah.
So how about we get to our next award, Jorge?
All right. Wait, I thought... No, you do this one. It's your turn.
Yeah, I think I was just pausing to be polite. Our next category is Best Action Game. The nominees are Ninpak, Rakshasa, and Mortol 2.
Oh.
And the winner is Rakshasa.
Wow. Let's go. I actually like this one a lot.
Yeah, no, it's Rakshasa is a Contra style video game, largely inspired by Indian folklore and mythology. Yeah, that's the first one I would compare it to.
You know, I actually thought Ghouls and Ghosts or
Ghosts
and
no,
Goblins.
You're right. I mean,
it does have a little bit of Contra in it because like a lot of the weapon upgrades feel like like it literally has the 5-way shot, which is iconic of Contra. It has like a homing weapon, which is the one I like to use a lot.
Yeah, I think also
it's a surprisingly deep game.
Yeah, I think the core gimmick of this game, which I've heard that this pulls into some folklore of some Indian folklore, but when you die, you're able to collect these rings.
Oh, this is the best part about it.
Yeah, and if you do so without any of the spirit enemies bumping into you, you go back to your body and you revive. Yeah. But every time you do that, it adds more rings and more enemies to dodge. So it makes it harder and harder to do. But you can hypothetically just die hundreds of times if you want and just come back. As
long as you can come back. So the interesting thing about that is that it becomes like a hybrid genre. Because when you're like alive, so to speak, it's basically a side-scrolling shoot 'em up. But when you die, it becomes a bullet hell. So your spirit comes out of your body, and then you're supposed to collect these rings that spread out into the screen in random places, and enemies come out where the rings are. And it can be, they're also randomly generated. It can be different types of enemies. You have to collect the rings without getting, I guess, shot at or killed by these enemies, and then you come back to life. And like Kyle said, the more you try this, the more difficult it gets. So I think my record is like 5. So like in the 5th one, I had maybe like 16 rings show up, and like every one of them spawns an enemy. So getting all of them feels impossible, but there's a trick to it, because like every time you collect a ring, you become invincible for a little while, and it's like a different game. Again, this looks like a compound a genre kind of thing. I thought it was brilliant, and like you said, it kind of it's based on the idea of reincarnation, and the challenge that comes with like doing that in a religious sense. So I thought it was an interesting gimmick to turn into a game, or like a game mechanic specifically.
We spoke about this a little bit earlier about the sort of difficulty plateau too, because what's funny about that is that like once you get good enough at this game, you don't need to interact with that death mechanic, and also because you're not dying as much, you're not making the death mechanic much harder. So it really does like get to a point where the game is maybe overwhelmingly difficult the first time, especially when you get to the frog zone in like the second level.
Oh my goodness.
But by the time you've spent a couple like hours on it, you know, it's a trivial easy game because you know exactly what to expect, and when you do fail, you're not being asked that much because you're not dying that much, and that's causing it to be easier to revive your body. So, but like this is a great thing. Like this game makes you feel such a sense of accomplishment after a few hours once you've just sort of learned it. And the fact that UFO 50 basically does that with almost every single game is really something special.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think this one is one of the more unique examples of that. I really like it.
So let's get let's keep moving on and go to our next category.
I already forgot. Am I doing this one or you?
Yeah, you are doing this one.
All right, Best Sim Strategy. The nominees are Avianos, Rock on Island, Tactics, and Lords of Disconia. Oh my god, all of these are good picks. All right. The winner is Avianos! Holy shit.
This is another breakout hit that a lot of people talk about.
Listen, I'm just going to say it. This is my favorite game. It is like... the first one that I played that I really stuck with, because when I first played this game, I was kind of going through all of them just to kind of get a feel of what each game was. This is the first one that I played, and I stuck with it. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, you kept coming back to it.
Yeah, I kept coming back to it even if I didn't have to, because I'm
Yes,
like, well, I really want to know like what I can do in this, and you know,
yeah. So Avianos is a 4X style strategy game in which you control a different number of birds that have evolved after humans have died out. They prey to different dinosaur gods, which grant them new powers. With each sort of increasing devotion, you get more and more bonuses with these dinosaur gods, as it influences the types of actions and things you can do during your turn. But yeah, it's just a really satisfying Civilization style game with like some really cool things going on with how to do the strategy of your units.
Yeah, the interesting thing about it is that it doesn't necessarily do a lot. It just does it like all it needs to do.
Yeah, because you're right. Like, it feels so overwhelming at first, but like really, you get a couple of different resources, you get a couple of different units, and then you just go to different points on the map and get more stuff. That's really all you need to do.
On every difficulty, you have the same bonuses, the same units, the same numbers of locations on a map. The only difference is that each map is randomly generated based on every gameplay or playthrough that you do. Really, and then the other randomized aspect of it is the opportunity you have to pray to several gods. 4 of them being Rexodon, Quetzalcoatl, Bronto something. I forgot his name already. And then the last one, Trihex. Those are like and each one of them gives you like a different bonus based on their I guess actually I'm forgetting one more. There's 5. There's not 4. Brontor was the Brontor is the Brachiosaurus one, and then there's one more I'm forgetting who's like a warrior god. He's the red one with the sword.
Oh, the Tyrannosaurus Rex, yeah. Each one is focusing on like some are strictly just production, or others like the Tyrannosaurus Rex is recruiting units and getting more resources to recruit units and moving to be able to
so attack. I love how each of them represents like their type, you know, because like Brontor, he's an herbivore, so the bonuses you get from him are strictly resource based. That kind of stuff is I don't know, I love that stuff, you know.
Yeah, no, it's just a very elegant and very satisfying game, and I think it compels you to come back to it in a way that's about like mastery and just doing cool things with different units and gods.
Yes, and the birds are really funny looking. I don't know.
They look great.
I love the owl wizards. They're so good. I don't know how to describe like what I love about them. Every time they show the graphic of them, they're just like got their arms raised like this, and they got a little.
Yeah, they're really doing the wololo.
Yeah, I don't know. There's just something really fun about that. Okay, so Stegnar is the warrior one with the sword and the shield.
Yeah, he's about sneak attacks and
yes.
And rituals, I think.
You can build and recruit with him.
That's it. He recruits like very strong units very fast, but you need different resources for them.
Yes, and my favorite is Rexodon. He's like Trilok, not Trihex. I'm thinking of like, isn't Trihex a streamer? Shit.
I don't know.
No, Trilok is the Triceratops god, the yellow one, and he's the one that can really mess up your opponent because you can pray to him and he can teleport you into a different space, like that kind of thing. It's really cool.
Yeah, and there's a lot going on with like the build that you choose to do because you get random gods every turn. So you can't necessarily bank on getting the same one.
Yeah, that's where the challenge comes in. Like the strategies are not fixed. You kind of have to think based on like who you can pray to that turn.
Mm-hmm. But if you pray to a god enough, you can compensate in other ways. But yeah, it's just got a lot going on. And
oh my god, I love that too. Like your devotion to a god is repaid. Like if you pray to one over and over, your bonuses get even better. I love that. This game is so good. There's just so many things about it.
No, fantastic game, and why don't we let that segue to our next category, which is Best AR/VR Game. The nominees are Miasma Tower and the LX Pet.
Ooh, I know who I voted for.
And our winner is Miasma Tower.
Ah, okay. All right.
I guess, well, very briefly, though, what is the LX Pet?
The LX Pet is actually not really a game, per se. It is a kind of a hidden mode inside of the UI, where you, in your library UI, where you select your games. If you scroll, if you go down and then scroll past like each sorting category type, you'll end up in a little thing called Little Buddy. And all it is just looking at your guy moving around his little house, and he just lives there.
Yeah, the ingenious thing about it, though, is that each game has a gift you can get, and the gift is obtained by doing sort of kind of your initial sort of figuring out the game. It's like, I think the rate at which you get the gift is usually it's you've played the game enough to sort of get what it's got going on. And so actually, if you want to play each game until you get the gift, usually that means that you've like tried it a little bit, and it's a very good metric for having played a game enough to get a form an opinion on it, which I think is very clever.
Yeah, so that is kind of like a little reward for trying each game out is an unlockable that you can give your little pet and that they'll interact with. And like you said, it's a very good metric for like giving you kind of a goal for like each game. You don't have to beat it, but you can at least do this much. And those little objectives do reward you with like a cosmetic reward, which is, it doesn't really give you anything in terms of like gameplay ability, but like you see your little guy and now he has a bed and he can sleep in it. It's great.
Yeah. And well, I mean, and retro achievements are a much more modern game design that I think is worth taking back.
But it is for that, like achievements do have their place in gaming. I think there are a nice way of setting goals that are like achievable in a game, and this is what it achieves. And the reason I voted, this was my vote, the LX Pet. The reason I voted this for AR VR game is because I feel like I'm watching this little guy and I'm there. I'm seeing him go about his day, and it's like real to me,
It is really fun to load it up and be like, where is that little guy?
Yeah, what's he doing now? And then I go over and he's just sleeping. Oh, isn't he
then he's on his jump rope and
yeah. I didn't get the jump rope.
Yeah, it's super cute. But I ultimately pushed for Miasma Tower.
Yep.
And without getting too much into it, like so many games released nowadays, there is a metagame element of UFO 50. And if you are able to do a scavenger hunt and find enough pieces of it, you are able to play a hidden game called Miasma Tower, which gets into some of the backstory behind who are the people making these games. Because each game has a developer behind it. It has a credits, and these are consistent throughout the development and the history of UFO Soft and the LX computer.
Okay.
So yeah, did you? I know you discovered the scavenger hunt, but did you get to Miasma Tower? Because you play like you do a certain number of scavenger hunts, you get Miasma Tower, and then you do more scavenger hunt, you get more Miasma Towers. So there's like 3 stages of Miasma Tower.
I didn't know that's what you got out of it. That's crazy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a way, because it's very much like a game that an employee at UFO Soft made in their spare time. That's sort of reflecting like.
Wait, are you saying this is like an additional game?
It's like a little adventure game, yeah.
Oh wow!
It's a secret game.
Wow, that's awesome.
But it gets into some of the more negative aspects of what it was like working at UFO Soft and sort of what some of the different employees were going through, because like the people at UFO Soft are like these very hyper stylized caricatures, usually based off of like characters in the games. And so it's interesting to see like your boss is represented by this like giant imposing grasshopper, and it's very threatening, and like it's using like a pitch shifted version of like the music from one of the games to sound really spooky. And it's a good way of like, yeah, and like it's just little things like that, like you see this like studio full of like games in the lobby, and you'll walk by the pool table and you're like, oh, this is the pool table we got after the building expansion, but we don't really play it much anymore. And it kind of hints at this sort of like, oh, this is like the very real toll that a lot of these studios are having on game developers, where like there's so much about sort of sense of play and entertainment and fun, but like they're very much environments that take that out of you.
That's interesting. So I feel like I feel like I don't want to talk about this more because I want to see for myself. Like,
yeah, I've been very purposeful on choosing little things to describe it that aren't just straight up just going over the plot.
But yeah, it's interesting that this even is in here. I didn't know that this was like a hidden game. I actually thought it was one of the games I didn't play.
No.
That's crazy. But and so you said this is like one of your scavenger hunt rewards, right?
Yeah. If you play enough of the scavenger hunt, you get to check in periodically on Miasma Tower and see like, oh, like this is a later point in the development of UFO Soft.
Okay, so say no more, because I feel like this is good shit. This is like good stuff. This is the reason I think people should play this game, is because it's more than just a compilation. It has like, there is lore to it. There is like there is a narrative going on that isn't explicitly told to you, but rather it's told in the form of Easter eggs.
Yeah, and it's one of those things too where it's like, if you want to get into the nitty-gritty and learn all of the different developers, you can. If you just want to maybe just have a very passive response to like, oh, this is representing crunch and sort of like this is trying to be like a lot of these different game studios that are very rich, like you can just sort of see it as it is, and you don't have to dig very hard to get a lot out of it. But yeah, it's a really cool element that I think exemplifies like this isn't just a collection of games. It's so much more that they're all together like this.
All right. Well, thanks for letting me know, because now I feel like I should follow through on this like hidden aspect of the game.
Yeah, it's definitely worth it. And you can just look up, like if you get stuck for more than like 15 minutes, because they very purposely put the hints early in the levels.
Yeah,
you don't have to beat a game to get a scavenger hunt piece.
Okay, so I will say this, because I do think there needs to, like, and something I do love about a UFO 52 is that some of the breadcrumbs you receive through like other people playing. Again, an aspect of retro gaming that I really miss is how the lived experience mattered, especially when other people were playing the game with you. So if you want to get started on this scavenger hunt in the game, look for clues that you can input as codes in the terminal option.
Yeah, the terminal has a very specific way that you enter in letters for it.
Which is it's in the pause menu. You can just access the terminal anytime you want in any game you have. It'll let you input a 8-digit code that is separated into 2 parts. That's all I'm going to say. Look for things that might fit in that text box, and that's kind of like the first step into discovering like some of these secrets.
Yeah, it's very much like if something looks a little weird for no reason, it's not for no reason.
Yeah.
So let's get to our next category, shall we, Jorge?
Okay. Our next category is Best Game Director. The nominees are Jerry Smolki, Benedict Chun, and Thorson. Is it Peter or Petter?
Let's say Petter, because that's funnier.
Okay. Thorson Petter is the final nominee. The winner is Jerry Smolki. Give it up for Jerry Smolki, Kyle.
Mm-hmm. Play the chase music from Mad Max Fury Road as he walks up on the stage. I don't know why they keep doing that for Hideo Kojima.
Oh, I completely forgot about that.
They did it again this year. They keep playing the Mad Max Fury Road. That's really just like a temp track.
That's what that's from. I knew it sounded familiar. Holy crap.
Yeah. But
wow.
Anyways, sorry.
All right. On behalf of Jerry Smolki, Kyle here will accept the award.
Thank you so much.
Yes.
Jerry Smolki is in charge of designing such games as Magic Garden, Valbrace, Kick Club, Bushido Ball, Block Koala, Golfaria. What else? Vanger, Rock on Island. And a lot. I mean, obviously they're one of the lead developers on so many of these different games. But I think they tend to do more of like the action games that feel so good. And you know, it is really something to nail good feeling NES without betraying a language that we're developing. You know, we're finding out how to make video games feel good.
Yes.
And to put it in more perspective, Jerry Smolki is otherwise known as Derek Yu.
What?
That's a pen name.
Oh my god.
Mm-hmm. So you know, you can really see the the Spelunky. Actually, hold on. I need to see. Did they do Divers? Or Porgy? Divers was not them. But Porgy was them, because I actually my first Derek Yu game was is Aquarius?
Oh, I don't even know
that
one. Yeah.
Oh no, it's funny actually. I think I have a strong affinity for UFO 50 because did you ever get the games that were in the original Humble Indie bundles?
No.
Man,
I was kind of a late adopter of those.
I was really big into the Humble bundles because the original packages they came out when I was in college, and
wow,
you know,
okay,
they're pay what you want. So I think it was like minimum $5 suggested, but like that was one of the things I most looked forward to every year, was having like these cool curated indie games that honestly, yeah, it really was like UFO 50, but like they could often have a lot more polish because they were full games by different developers. But I want to say one of the very first ones had a Derek Yu game called Aquaria, I believe, which is a game about it's a Metroidvania, but you're a mermaid and you're exploring in an ocean and getting new powers to help you swim faster. Yeah,
Porgy has a lot of that. Porgy's a very underwater. It's literally a game about going underwater with a little submarine character who's very cute. It's called Porgy. They have big eyes, and it has that. I don't know why, but like underwater games are like a choice. When someone wants to make a game about going underwater, that is a choice. I don't know if you're familiar with Echo the Dolphin, but like that's like the granddaddy in my mind of the underwater game. And also like those, you know, the Donkey Kong Country water stages, that kind of thing.
It's a way to it is a way to make games feel like very serene but also mysterious. It's a way to play with movement. It's just it's a really interesting premise for a game, which, like, you know, all of these underwater games are going to be different, but I feel like they're all going to be pulled from a very shared language. And I think that's like, it's interesting that like everyone's got a different take on that, but like they're all going to be sort of putting a spin on like, what does it mean to dive? What does it mean to swim faster? How does momentum work differently when you aren't platforming? You know, you don't deal with gravity in the same way.
But I think also in terms of setting, it lends itself to having like a spectrum of ambient and moods. Like you can go from serene to horror, scary. You can go from adventure to just tense, and that kind of thing. I don't know if that makes sense what I'm saying, but
No, and like it's one that's very easy to communicate with the player because like, well, how much dangerous is the level? How deep are you?
yeah, that like the deeper you go, the scarier it gets, and you can play around with that with underwater games, I think. So,
Mhm.
did you figure out what the game was called?
Yeah,
The
it
one you
is.
played?
It is Aquaria.
Thank you. Okay, I'll check it out because I only know him for Spelunky.
Hmm.
That's what I'm familiar with.
Yeah.
He posts really good takes on Twitter. I don't know if you follow him.
I don't.
I had a pretty neat interaction with him where I was trying to guess an artist for the Illusion of Gaia manual, which was redrawn for the United States, and I was trying to figure out who the artist was, and I can't remember who I fell on, but I tweeted at him because I'm like, "Well, you're familiar with this artist. What do you think?" And he agreed. I'm like, "Oh, thanks."
Also, oh my God,
So
I was looking up Derek Hughes' discography, his works, and I would say yeah,
for
Aquaria is his first
you mean for
like
games?
yeah
Oh,
gameography.
okay. Yeah, because discography is like music, right?
His PC discography.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
yeah. And I would say yeah, Aquaria was his first like big game that saw um like critical and commercial success, and it's a 2007 indie game too, which is like right on that era of the indie game boom. But I'm looking at some of his earlier works, and 2003 he released a game called Diabolica, and it is absolutely the demon puzzle game.
2003. I was still in high school.
Oh my God, yeah, no, the demons are exactly the same. That is
That's
incredible.
oh my goodness. Yeah, so this the full list of developers is a total of 6 people. I can name them if we want.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, we can kind of go into like the actual history of this game. Uh, oh goodness, I can't pronounce half of these names though. We got Eric Sirk, Derek Yu, Paul Hubbins, John Perry, Tyreek Plummer, and Ojiro Fumoto.
Fujimoto.
No, Fumoto.
Oh, Fumoto.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, these are the 6 real life developers that worked on UFO 50. In the context of the games themselves, they use pseudonyms, which they pretty much assign to like what they work in. So not only does it add like a level of realism to the game, these are the people who actually worked on the game. Uh, and it's interesting. You point out something that I didn't notice, but like the later you get into the titles, the less recognizable their names are. Like they start using just initials for their in the
Yeah.
credits.
So this is something I found out like literally I think today. But the last couple of games in UFO 50, if you beat them, you get credits, and it shows the CEO basically of UFO Soft, but all of the other game developers are listed as initials. And
Wow.
it's only until the last couple of games when you know the company is really becoming like more about the visions of a venture capitalist and not of real people making these games. And that says so, it said so much because I was just trying to see if I could see something funny in the Cyber Owls credits, and I noticed that, and I just kind of like had this oh my God moment.
Yeah.
You know,
So those little things are what hint at what the actual lore of UFO 50 is. It's not so much a collection of games, which it is, but also a story about this company and how they started with like an authentic vision, a very creator focused. Like it's kind of the story of the artist, where you start out with like this genuine passion for something, but at the end of the day, in order to make a living, you kind of have to sell a little bit of that and a little bit of yourself, and it loses its integrity in the process.
yeah.
Very interesting. I didn't like when you pointed that out. Again, it kind of motivated me more to like invest myself in the hidden story of this game.
Yeah, and I guess, to get into the weeds a little bit, like, I think I've played a good, like, 50 or 60 hours of these UFO 50 games, which
Mm-hmm.
it's so funny that it feels like we're still like, yeah, I barely played this one.
I
Um,
know. I just checked and it says 55 on my Steam Deck, so I'm there with you.
yeah, which how many of that is just blank Pilot Quest hours? But, yeah, I guess this is just to say that, like, there are still things that are like surprising me or giving me new reactions to this work of art, and I think that's really something special that's so hard to capture in just a very roundabout, like, game awards type thing or end of the year list. That, like, this
Right.
this this has something to it that's really special,
Mm-hmm.
and it
Mm-hmm.
really only comes when you've spent time on it and you've really thought about it. And I can't wait to see what I think about this game, even in January, when I'm trying to play a little bit more of it. Yes, let's get to the next category, shall
Okay.
we?
Thank
We're
you.
being too waxing philosophical on this.
I
Um,
mean, that's what we're about here at the Brain Lords Game Awards.
that's true.
Sorry, Jeff. I know. I see the prompter. It says wrap it up, but like I'm just gonna keep going.
He's threatening to bring a Muppet on board. Let's go. Our next category is for Best Art Direction. The nominees are Rakshasa,
Ooh,
Mooncat, Waldorf's
Mooncat.
Journey,
Yeah.
and Seaside Drive.
Ah,
Side
who's
note,
the winner?
the Game Awards really should have a hype man. Just going like,
I'll take that as
the
a
winner,
compliment.
the winner is Mooncat.
Mooncat. I kind of thought Seaside Drive was gonna get it, but Mooncat
It's
really is up there.
it's like they're with how limited these games are. It's fun to see like the surprising areas in which you get really impressed, but uh, Mooncat of the bunch is like the weird indie darling. I feel like it's one of those. It's very derisive. So Mooncat is a spiritual sequel to another game that we'll talk about later
All right.
in the UFO 50 lore.
Mm-hmm.
But Mooncat is a very unique platformer, and the way that it controls is that every button on the right side of the controller moves you right, and every direction on the D-pad moves you left.
Right.
And,
So
and
basically, the face of your controller, like every button that's on the right will move you right, and every button that's on the left will move you left.
yes, so it's I heard it described as like a game that makes you feel like you are playing platformers for the first time.
Yeah, I mean, it's unique enough that you really do have to spend the first 15 minutes just figuring out the controllers.
Yeah, and then, like, there's other tech that you can do, as it were. Double tapping does something, pressing one
Oh,
button and then the
right.
other does something. I found out that you could like air dodge in the game.
What? How do you air dodge?
Yeah, you double tap while in the air.
Doesn't that make you drop down?
No, it's if you hold both, I think you drop down. But if you just double tap one direction in the air,
Whoa.
but you don't need that. You never need that to clear a gap. You might maybe to get some secrets, but
So this is something I really really liked about Mooncat. At first impressions of it are these controls are weird. I hate it. Get me out of this thing. But the more you try to figure it out, the more you realize, no, it makes sense. One button goes right, one button goes left, and when you figure that out, you're like, oh, when I'm moving, the other button jumps, and then you figure that out, and you go, wait, if I double tap, I dash. Oh, if I tap while I'm jumping, I pound, and it just, again, it's one of those games that like really wants you to figure it out. Like it doesn't straight up tells you what it does, but rather it respects you. It respects your patience. It's like, no, there's more you can do. It feels limited, but it's not.
yeah, and the world of Mooncat is a very like you're a weird little egg
Oh
with
my
feet,
god, yeah, let's go into this.
and there are some things that make sense. Birds see you and they fly down like the Ninja Gaiden birds. Um, but a lot of the enemies in that game are ones where you have to kind of like look at them for a little bit and observe, and you're in just a very
Mm-hmm.
weird nature environment, and you just have to kind of figure out what are the rules of this world even.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah. Not
but
just the controls, but like the world. Like there's things you again, at first glance you don't know it, but there's things you can bounce off of if you ground pound them. There's like there's ways to go down ledges. You can't just like press a button and go down. You have to figure out how to do it, that kind of thing.
Yeah, and sorry, brain fart.
Uh-oh. Sorry, Geoff. Oh my god, it's the Muppets. Hurry, Kyle. Oh crap, I see Kojima heading up the stage. Oh my god.
Oh no, it's playing the Mad Max thing.
They're queuing us out. Oh crap, no. I can keep going while you remember.
Yeah,
but
go
like
ahead, go ahead.
Mooncat also aesthetically has a very experimental visual style. Mooncat, by name, you picture something, but it's not at all what you think it is. If I could describe Mooncat as anything as a character, it's like a little vegetable with legs, like a spore with like leaf limbs.
Yeah, like an eggplant or something.
Yeah, and like everything in the world is like this. There's just a lot of things that, and okay, I don't mean this derisively, and I think comparing it to this is unfair, but this is the most Action 52 game in the whole collection. And I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean that in a good way. And let me explain.
Yeah, like there's a clunkiness, like a jank it is very, very purposely eliciting out of you to make you feel as though you are playing these stranger games that you're not really sure, like, what does this even mean? Like, what were they thinking? Before we've really...
You said it.
What were they thinking?
So, not just that, but, like, visually, too. Like, a lot of it doesn't make sense to a logical brain, but it purposefully isn't trying to do that. And I feel like there were games on Action 52 that were like this, where it was like, why are you playing as fingers? Why are there like clocks everywhere? And this game does that, but it does it to like an artistic degree where it's like, it doesn't feel like random. It feels deliberate, but it just has that like, that presence of like, wow, this is a game you would find in a random compilation of games. Just that one weird one that's like, what even is this? What were they thinking? Not to repeat the phrase, but
the time
it really does feel that way.
Yeah, and something I wanted to say was that we talk about the modern things that these games are implementing, and the game, when you die, you really only go back to the beginning of the screen. You don't have a limited number of lives. So
yeah, it's a lot more forgiving.
Yeah, it knows when to make you feel like you're playing an old game without necessarily having some of the arbitrary punishment of an old game.
Correct.
I mean, you definitely have to redo the whole screen, but you're really not losing that much progress when you do. You'll curse maybe, but you're not losing more than like 2 minutes is maybe the longest screen.
For real. Compared to things like Rakshasa and Ninpek, like it's a lot more forgiving for which again, it respects your patience. Like there is a challenge to it, but the challenge is in like figuring out the game rather than like being the best at it.
Yeah, and I feel like the art direction really speaks to that, because like the music is very dreamy, the game is very chill,
yeah.
The movement is very deliberate, and so like all of this is contributing towards like a feeling, and it's all very concise with that. But yeah, Mooncat, just a fantastic little game. And yeah, I think that's a beautiful way of putting it, is that like it really just is like playing a weird Action 52 game and going like, what is this?
Yeah, what is this? But in the best way, like it elevates that. It doesn't feel like a rushed product, which is what Action 52 actually was. It feels like an artistic decision to make it this way.
Or like the Monster Party NES game, where you just don't know what to expect, especially it's like of a culture that you don't understand.
Correct.
But let's get on to our next category.
Oh boy, I believe you're next.
So our most anticipated game, the nominees are Party House, the board game.
The nominee,
and the winner is Party House, the board game. Yeah,
wow.
Look, let's be real. Like that, the developers like did some research on board games. I have a feeling like
Oh.
if the rate at which people are like praising Party House, I can see them doing a little card game that you buy for like $30 or something, and you can just play it solitaire style. I think that could be a real thing that exists within 2025.
Kyle, if it didn't happen in the 80s, I don't know if it's going to happen now.
I'm anticipating it, all right? But we've already spoken at length at how amazing Party House is. So why don't we get on to our next category?
Yes, of course. I will do this. Give me the envelope. Give me the envelope, Geoff. All right, best multiplayer. The nominees are Bushido Ball, Kick Club, Hyper Contender, and Hotfoot, which I promise is a real game. And the winner is Bushido Ball. Wow. I feel like this one I was not expecting.
It's hard. Like, we were able to play a lot of the earlier games multiplayer. I really can't wait to play kind of the last games that we haven't tried multiplayer together. But that is something that was a really nice experience. Is early into UFO, we sat together and played, like, you know, you can't play over the internet. You have to play local. And so we got together, plugged in two controllers, and tried out. Yeah.
We did a Kick Club. Did we do Bushido Ball?
I don't think we did Bushido Ball.
No, we didn't get that far, but go on.
But yeah, so, you know, I really want to see what people are able to do once they're able to play these games together. And Bushido Ball is a like an Edo era windjammers, where you're knocking
nice.
a ball back and forth as these different caricatures of samurai and ninja and, you know, different, you know, Naga Kiba spear wielding samurai.
I love the characters in this game.
The character design is very good, and they also have like this super thick, bold outline, which is not something you saw in NES games. I think that's so cool. You know, because it makes the sprites so big. That's something I don't see a lot of people mentioning this, but like, it is kind of funny that you play these games at a 16:9 ratio, and that changes the game a lot. Like, there's a game that we might discuss later that's like plays a lot like what's the early twin stick shooter?
Smash Super TV. Smash TV.
Yeah. It plays a lot like that, but like, think about it. Like, if you're shooting in a rectangle, it means you can't hit all four corners when you're in the dead center of the screen.
True.
So yeah, the aspect ratio actually has a very dramatic effect on the types of games that you can make for this, but it feels so seamless. Like, people aren't talking about it because it's not really something that you notice unless you go out of your way to make a point of, and I think that's really clever that these are not using the same limitations necessarily as NES games, and yet they are.
No, Bushido Ball is definitely like, I think graphically I do feel like it does have I would say like a River City Ransom approach to its like chunky pixel style, but in terms of gameplay, you cannot do this in the NES. No way. It is the most competitive out of the multiplayer games too.
Yeah, to its credit, I think why maybe this one eked over is this is the one I can see giving the most reward for really learning how to play it and learning how the meta works.
Yeah, I watched my brother Andy play it from start to finish. He actually beat the game, and let me tell you, it gets extremely difficult near the end. So I can only imagine what like if there was hypothetically a competitive scene to this game, I can only imagine how crazy it would get.
Yeah, like I would love of all the UFO 50 games, I would love to see Bushido Ball as a MagFest tournament the most, I think.
We would hope so. You know, like some of these games do lend themselves to competitive play in a good way. I think they're, you know, again, speaking of patches, I wonder if there ends up being like a competitive scene for some of these games. Would the developers focus on like keeping those games updated and balanced?
It's a good question. I'd love to see what UFO 50 is like, you know, in the coming years. And honestly, I wonder if maybe the developers had so much fun or had so many ideas, do they just put out like a little itch.io sequel to, Party House 2 or whatever? I would
Yeah,
love to
something
see
like
what
that, right?
happens out of these games.
Did you see Rakshasa got a GDQ? Got into GDQ. I don't know if you saw that.
Uh, oh no, I didn't.
Yeah, so already we're seeing like a competitive, so to speak, scene for a UFO 50 game.
Yeah, that'll be really cool to see what like sub seeds are developed out of like speedrunning
Mm-hmm.
and playing these different games. But let's move on, shall we?
All right, best sports and racing. Actually, you should do this one.
Yes, yes. So best sports and racing games, our nominees are Hotfoot,
Mm.
Big Bell Race, and
Yes.
Paint Chase. And the winner is Big Bell Race.
The GOAT! My favorite racing game in well, it might be the only racing game in UFO
Yeah,
50.
technically. Which is funny because like I feel like a lot of people just like write this one off very because
Oh,
if
I
you are
loved
playing
it.
if you play it single player, like there isn't much to it.
I loved it. I played it and I finished it and I won first place, like my first try. I was very into it.
Yeah, and what I love about it is lore wise, they
Oh.
made because like the computer is the LX,
Mm-hmm.
and you're playing I think two or three different iterations of it. But the LX3 is the final version of the computer,
Mm-hmm.
and um, the Big Bell Race is a game that's made to come with the new LX3, and it's a game they had to make in like 2 weeks. So it's very, very bare bones. It's stripped back. It's using the assets of another game, which I think is something that speaks to modern and even like retro game design is using the assets and lessons learned from a game to iterate on it and make a new game. That is game development. It's not sustainable to have to make brand new things for this every single time, and I think this kind of beautifully speaks to it.
Yeah, Big Bell Race. They do. It is. It is. It is cool how they like made a different game out of Campanella. I think that's what you were saying. Um,
Yeah,
that they kind of in the lore of the LX itself, this was like the pack-in game, and that makes sense. I believe
yeah,
the what.
that's a beautiful way of looking at it, and that is a big portion of game history is these little games that come with the consoles. Like look, literally, the game of the year is Astrobot, which is a sequel to a pack-in game.
Oh,
So
oh,
like
we'll get into
you
that
can't
later.
deny the place that this has is sort of a thing to appreciate games.
Yeah, but I personally, the reason I like Big Bell Race because I like racing games, and also it's like you said, it's fun how they made a completely new game out of like reused assets. I love that like I don't know if you've paid attention to the characters in Big Bell Race. They're just so good. I don't know, like I am in awe of like how these designers can like continue to come up with like funny little guys for all of their games, like different little guys.
Yeah, no, every game is extremely cute, and the level at which like they have all these different developers working on them that still has like a shared continuity, it really speaks to the amount of time that they worked on this game.
I'm gonna talk about the characters real quick.
Go for it. Yeah, I can't think of them off the top of my head, so please paint us a picture.
It's definitely the Pilot Quest characters are in it. So Pilot and Isabel. They're definitely like they're. Would you consider them, even though the game pushes them as like the mascot characters? Would you consider them the main characters of UFO 50? Like, is that something you ever thought about?
I mean, yeah, like I think just the mascot characters is the best way of putting it.
Right, and I've heard people say that they really gravitated towards Pilot. Like when I'll admit when I first saw Pilot, I'm like, he's funny, but like I don't know if he has like the appeal of like a mascot character. But I am completely wrong in that. Like I've seen people embrace him as like a pretty good, uh, uh, I guess like icon. Yeah, that's the word I'm looking for the game itself. The characters are Pilot, Isabel, that slug guy from Pilot Quest. You remember his name? Uh, the one with the
No.
sunglasses.
No,
The
but
one
that
that
is a cool. It's a cool guy.
yeah, he's the guy with that wants the meat. One of the alien enemies, a tentacle monster with like one eye, and a robot. They don't have any names, but I love these designs. They're so good. How do they come up with these little guys? This game is just like abundant in them, you know?
No,
All
it is
right.
the most little guys.
The most little guys to game ratio is UFO 50. My goodness. All right.
So why don't you segue us into our next category, Jorge?
Boy, am I excited about our next category. Best golf game. The nominees are Pin Golf and Golf Area. The winner, of course, is Pin Golf. Let's go.
Pingolf owns. Pingolf just owns. Like I don't have a lot to say about it. It just owns. It's an 18-hole course golf game. It plays 2D perspective instead of top down. It's profile. And the big gimmick of it is that you have a dunk button once your ball is in the air, which means if you hit it while you're on a ramp, you like rocket downward.
Yeah.
If you're over an object and your ball is mid trajectory, you will bounce down and maintain that momentum. It's such a small addition to, there's not a lot of 2D side scrolling golf games, I guess is the better way of putting it. But the fact that it's a much smaller number than like the NES style golf games. But like just that dunk, it adds so much, adding one little thing to this game. It's incredible.
And it's a very aesthetically well-made game too. It's sci-fi futuristic. Most of the characters are like actually all the characters are just cyborgs. I don't know if you've appreciated these, but there's one lady with her brain exposed. That's my main. She's called Red.
No, I feel like you like the aesthetic of this game because it's very much a Pinbot, Bride of Pinbot.
Yeah, so I was gonna say even the text they use in the bottom screen before a stage starts, that is like straight out of like retro pinball machines. I love that. That's
because
really
like
nice
when you score, I mean because the theme is like a robotic pinball golf game, but like when you score, there's that little LED matrix on the bottom of the screen.
That's what it is. Yes.
They're definitely pulling to that style. So it's funny that like they have a game that's sort of like within UFO Soft referencing like outside video games.
Yeah, and it is also a very I think like you said, they take liberties with like the genre. It doesn't have to be strictly golf. It's space golf, and having just an additional mechanic to keep it interesting goes a long way.
Yeah, it's like you can tell what every game is maybe pulling from, but none of them feel like the obvious pick. I don't know. There's always something going on.
With Pin Golf, I have to give it to them. Pin Golf to me feels like one of the more original entries in UFO 50 because I can't really think of this reminds me of so and so. Like the closest I can think of is Kirby's Dream Course, but they're not at all the same in playstyle. So I don't know. It is one of the more inspired entries in the library. Really feels like its own thing. It could be a standalone game if they expand upon it.
Yeah, well, and something I love deeply about UFO 50 is that, like, yes, there are very much games that are, inspired by very specific games. But, like, you recall earlier when we were talking about Rakshasa, like, I called it a Contra game. You said it was a Ghouls and Ghosts game, and we're both right. Yeah. But, like, it's doing something kind of interesting with like both of those at the same time and doing its own thing. We haven't really talked about it much, but Magic Garden is very much meant to be a Pac-Man style game, but it is not like a Maze Runner game. It is very different. It's doing its own things.
Yeah. I would even consider it more of like just a single screen arcade with its unique mechanic. Yeah.
But let's continue, shall we?
All right, of course.
Our next award is Best Family Game. The nominees are Elfazar's Hat, Block Koala, and Magic Garden. And the winner is Elfazar's Hat.
That's what I would have gone with. I love this game.
It's like there's other games that I think are doing things more elegantly, that are more surprising, that are more I'm replaying them more, but I just like Pocky and Rocky. And
Yeah.
Elfazar's Hat is a game where you walk around a little level as a cute character and you get power-ups and you fight bosses and it's just super fun. And even when you die, it's like you feel good to get your power-ups back. It's it's just so cute and so wonderful.
Yeah. Speaking of games on UFO 50 that are more derivative of other existing entrees. Are we in a restaurant? Elfazar's Hat. I had no idea what it was like before I went into it, and holy crap, I'm like, yes, it's Pocky and Rocky. I want this. I'm into it. Let's go.
Mm.
With its own skin and its own like unique mechanics, I appreciate that I appreciate the magic card mechanic where like different combinations you get give you different upgrades. That keeps things new and interesting.
Yeah, it's Pocky and Rocky, but like there's a power up economy that you have to be paying attention to, and there's sort of a risk reward with. Um, it's almost like how you collect the power ups in Diddy Kong Racing. If you get multiples of the same, it's
Mm-hmm.
stronger.
Yeah.
So you're almost always better off getting three in a row, but sometimes you can't make that decision. So it's doing just a little bit extra that it just really adds a lot to it. But it's just an approachable and fun game, and there aren't a
Yeah.
lot of
Yeah.
games. There aren't a lot of games in the collection that are just like 5 levels and a main boss. There's really only a couple, so it's just like it really nails them very well.
Yeah, what I like about this game is that it does enough. It doesn't try to do more. It knows what's good and what's bad. And it keeps both because it
Yeah.
is hard. It like just how Pocky and Rocky was. It's very difficult. You do have to. There is a learning curve. You do have to. I played this one with Margot and she was having a hard time, and I'm like, yeah, this is how it is. Like we had a hard time playing Pocky and Rocky. It's no different.
Hmm. Well,
And
especially a lot of these games do the thing too, where like the first level is like, all right, you got this. Like you'll maybe die once, just like
now
figuring out the
let's go.
controllers. You're fine. You get the power ups, and then level 2 comes, and you're just like, oh no, this is
Yeah, like
the real
okay.
Dark Souls begins here.
Uh, but also, I love that it's aesthetically its own thing. I love the character designs. I always want to play as player 2
Oh, the
because
pigeon.
the pigeon guy is my favorite. He's so cool
No, that
looking.
bunny. The bunny is so cute though.
Yeah, and I I feel bad. It's one of those games that immediately invests you because the story is like them escaping like prison or like the basically the cage that the magician has them locked in. And it's like Gimmick. I don't know if you remember the
Yeah.
backstory for Gimmick. Like you watch the first cutscene and immediately you're like, no, I have to help them. I have to do it for them. And then it's just difficult and you're just suffering because you're like, no, I want them to be happy. So in that aspect, I also very much enjoyed it.
Yeah. Well, let's. Yeah, incredible. Let's continue, shall we?
All right,
Um,
next
the
category.
the next category is
I'll do it.
best. Oh yeah, go ahead.
I'll do it. Best fighting game. This is the one where all the judges forget to play games for. So the nominees are Hyper Contender, Bushido Ball, and Fist Hell. And the winner is, that's right, Hyper Contender. Of course it's Hyper Contender.
Mm-hmm.
This is like the fighting game in the
Yeah, it's
collection.
really the only like true fighting game, and even then, it's more of a Smash Brothers style fighting game.
Yeah, the the neutral or the agnostic term is platform fighter. But yeah, this is very much a like platform fighter. It's not based on like health or damage. It's based
Yeah,
on rings. Like the mechanic is you knock a character. Like okay, the mechanic is you have a set of rings at the start of the round. You either steal rings from the opponent or you collect them from the stage as they spawn. The thing I like about this game is that each character has a very, very unique mechanic. No two characters are alike. They're very much. I don't know how to describe it. Like it's not. It's not a very. The strategy is not to fight so much as it is to like collect the rings and get ahead of your opponent in terms of like their play style, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, everyone has an extremely unique way of moving, and it's about mastering.
Right.
And like, it's cool because every character's like bad at something. Like, if a character's good at moving, it means that their attacks are hard to land. If their attacks are really straightforward, it
Oh
means
yeah.
their movement is like really janky. So,
I played as the
because
robot guy. I forgot his name. Yogo, I think. I played as the
yeah,
robot guy because I love his design. Like as soon as I started the game, I'm like, this is my main. But holy shit, he's one of the more technical characters. His attacks are terrible, but his mobility is amazing. He has a crane arm that
yeah,
lets
bionic
him
commando arm.
that lets him grapple onto any platform, and it was just extremely efficient for capturing rings that would just spawn. But when it came to defending myself, I didn't know what the hell to do. He has a little boomerang that's like really slow. The arc is very predictable. If you're playing as the AI, it'll know exactly where it's going. So it was very hard to fight back. And yeah, like every character has just like you said, they're very much expert at one thing but completely lacking in something else. And that's
Yeah.
where the balance in the game comes in.
Well, and like I don't know if you notice this, but the robot, like when they're swinging, that counts as a melee attack. So if you get good at moving and
Oh,
swinging, it is brutal. It is
I didn't
like
know that.
extremely hard to fight them.
So you mean like Tarzan, like and then like
Yeah.
that is an attack. Wow, holy crap!
But
I
like
didn't know that.
I don't think there's a single character that's just like the Ryu, like the very straightforward character. Everyone's got a weird gimmick.
Yeah, I was
Um,
gonna say maybe the Ninja Girl. She's like the most. She feels like the
yeah.
most balanced one. But I found that the one I had the best, like the best results with was, I forgot her name, but she's like the space lady who can like, hover, but
Oh, the
her
jetpack.
attacks are
Yeah.
like, yeah, her attacks are like angled lasers that you can like aim up or down, but you can't aim straight. So
Yeah,
like,
like if you are above or below, like you're great, but God help
yeah,
you if you are on
oh yeah,
the same axis as someone else.
that and those things, you know, at first I was kind of frustrated with the game because the AI is extremely like OP. They will know exactly what you're trying to do. They're very good at predicting your movements and the trajectory of your shots. But once I figured out, oh, like I can control the direction of this beam and it bounces off, so like I do have a lot more control than I think. Then I started getting like the upper hand. And you know, for a game that at first I was like, this is kind of like too difficult for me. I don't know if I'm gonna enjoy it. I actually ended up doing the tournament and doing, I forget what the other mode was, the one where you like
Oh,
tag
the
team.
draft.
Yeah, yeah, I did the draft and I beat both, and I had a good time. It was great.
Yeah, no, that's another game where I really want to see what people do when they get really good at that game and play other people who have
Mm-hmm.
done the same. Well, I think that wraps up what we were
Very
saying
nice.
about our best fighting game. So let's go to our next category, which is Best RPG. The nominees are
Woo.
Valbrace, Grimstone,
Mm.
and Divers.
Wow,
And the winner
divers.
is Valbrace.
Valbrace. Here, I thought
This was
Grimstone was gonna get it.
yeah, this was contentious because I think Grimstone is the most game. And
It's the most
it's good. It is
RPG.
very yeah, it is the most like a dragon, if you will. Um, but Valbrace just has some really cool things going for it. It is a dungeon crawler style RPG in which you are first person traversing through a predetermined dungeon maze, and combat is done um, as though a hack and slash in which you are dodging sort of in first person. You're ducking and weaving, you're blocking, and you're slashing during openings in an enemy's attack
Mm-hmm.
in a way that's both like it's an action RPG for sure. The better that you can play this game, the less you have to rely on your pure stats. But it's very much about like exploring a space, learning the rules of this dungeon, and upgrading your character in a way to overcome it.
You know, uh, it is an action RPG, but don't misjudge it too much. I'm not saying you, but like when people first play it, they might think it's more like, yeah, like more focused on action, but there is traditional RPG elements to it. Your equipment matters a lot in like how much damage you can do, how much damage you can take. You literally start out as a naked dude, and you have to find armor to make yourself stronger. So even though you do have more control over the flow of combat, it still has very much like a min-max aspect to it, which I appreciate, honestly. This game, parts of it reminded me of Phantasy Star, like classic Phantasy Star, with the first-person perspective dungeon crawling.
Yeah.
And immediately I'm tickled, like, ooh, this is, I'm into this, okay. But it also has a very, I can only describe as Punch-Out inspired combat style.
Yeah, I wanted to describe it without necessarily relying on another video game.
I know,
Yeah,
I hate doing that, but
out.
geez, like that is the one thing that came to mind. Like, if I could describe but again, it takes that as its template and expands upon it, and suddenly you find yourself like having fantasy style battles with like slimes and monsters, but in a way that feels more like a fighting game, like an arcade fighting game. And
well,
that's
and
brilliant.
so like this is something that like you've never been like as huge on the Souls games, but I think something that those do really well is that like if you are good enough, it does not matter what your equipment is. It's all about reading the tells and just knowing when your opening is.
I see. Yeah.
And so this is kind of communicating in that same language of like you learn this game and level ups do not matter, but you can compensate for that by improving your stats and your gear and getting help.
Yeah, and it's one of the. This is why I think we picked it over Grimstone, because I think it has more. I don't know. It just has more going for it in terms of like a game, like a new or a concept, you know. Because Grimstone, it's not bad.
Faithful.
Yeah, it's not a bad game, but it is probably way more derivative of like any game that I can think of in UFO 50. It does a lot right, but it has a very much inspired Dragon Quest III class system. It also has that Final Fantasy 1 aspect where you have to pick your classes before the game starts, and you're stuck with them for the rest of the game. And you know, it has the random encounters. The random encounters to me felt like Final Fantasy 3, where like there is no limit to how many enemies can be on screen, and that can be a little annoying. And you know, you play it and you're like, okay, got it. And then you move on to the next thing. I just didn't feel like getting into Grimstone. Maybe that's just me. I don't know how you felt personally, but like, there's a category that'll explain how I feel about Grimstone later. Not to get ahead of myself, but yeah.
Yeah, no, very, very much I agree. Like, Valbrace has the juice. Grimstone is a loving recreation of things that has its own identity, but I don't think it is yes-anding as much as some of these other games. It's just cool as hell doing a cowboy RPG, but other than that...
Yeah, the setting is excellent, and I love the character designs.
What I love about it, too, is that it's very much supposed to be like Fantasy Texas, but it's the name of the world is hell.
I love the name of the god, Biggin.
Yeah. Also, yeah, all the names of the towns are... I can't remember any of them, but they're like... Oh, this is absolutely just Houston, but spelled funny.
Yeah, that stuff is good. Like that's where the good stuff in Grimstone is. Unfortunately, it really is a little too formulaic when it comes to the flow of its gameplay.
Yeah.
And it as good as it probably is, it just didn't. You know, we weren't compelled to continue it.
Yeah. So our next category, Jorge.
All right.
Why don't you lead us to that?
Games for Impact. The nominees are Porgy, Minnie and Max, and Waldorf's Journey. The winner is Porgy. Our boy Porgy. Just
like the real Game Awards, we don't really have a strong definition of what Games for Impact means.
Anyway, speaking of, I'd like for you to explain.
Games for Impact, because we can't call the category gay/cry.
Whoa! True, though. Anyway, tell me why Porgy is the winner of this category.
I feel like the games for Impact are like a category to identify like games that are maybe trying to say something a little bit more with their messaging. And Porgy's got a little bit of like environmentalism going on. It's a little bit more about like maybe some corruptions or things going wrong in our oceans, um, and also I think it's worth just celebrating because it's just a lovely little um, diving game, another one.
Yeah, we went into it a little bit earlier, but yeah, it is really I don't know how else to say it. Like it's a feel good game. It from the moment it starts, you see this very kind scientist being friends with this like wide-eyed, literally wide-eyed submarine creature, and it's just adorable, and you're instantly compelled to feel for it and care for it. And you go underwater and you see there's trash. There's like there's a mermaid who lost her eggs, and again, it's like a game that like extracts like good out of you. Like it wants you to feel positive.
Yeah, I did. You know, yeah, I do care for little Porgy. He's very cute.
I know exactly.
I like
like that
their
cutscene. You see the opening cutscene when he's like on the loading dock and it's just a big submarine with big eyes.
Mm-hmm.
It's adorable. All right.
Yeah, let's keep moving then. With our next category, best performance. Our nominee is the person who goes mission start in the beginning of Cyber Owls. And the winner is
yeah,
the guy who goes mission start in Cyber Owls.
Shout out to that guy. Do the credits tell you who it is?
No, that's how I found out the credit thing where the later games don't acknowledge anyone by name is because I wanted to see if they did credit that, and they don't. I need to find out who did Mission Start.
We need to find out. I wonder if the lore hints at it, but yeah, I think it's the only recorded voice line in the entire collection. So
yeah, no, it was like a jump scare when I got to it.
It's just questions. I feel like there's just more mystery surrounding this than there is like any actual game lore.
Mm-hmm. But let's go to our next category.
Putting that aside, we're not going to even question. Anyway, yes, our next category is best score and music. The nominees are Pilot Quest, Mooncat, Warp Tank. Warp Tank sounds like a Transformer name.
Yeah.
Rakshasa. And the winner is... What? Really? Pilot Quest? I'm sorry. Pilot Quest is the winner of best score in music.
How amazing would it be if the Game Awards could have like someone go like, for real? As their
just like open the envelope and be like, huh? Okay.
Mm-hmm. Well, they could say huh a lot if Harrison Ford is any
oh no, Kyle! Why don't they let that? They should really let that man stay home. Honestly, stop dragging him out of whatever he's doing. Just
let him do a Zoom call.
Yeah, let him just take. Like goodness, I feel so bad. Anyway,
I will say I do tease a lot to the Game Awards as I rightfully should, but the their little quip about like this being an indie game, I thought that was very cute. You get one for that.
I guess so, yeah. I thought Warp Tank was gonna win this one because it has a pretty cool soundtrack.
A lot of the soundtracks in this game are very limited. Games will have maybe even just one track, and then like an intro and a death track or something like that. But so it's hard. Yeah. Like the games that got in this category were ones that just had literally more than a couple of songs to them.
Right.
But yeah, no, Pilot Quest is a bop. Like Mooncat, I feel bad for that one not winning because it does elicit such a vibe. And yeah, Warp Tank is just so fun. But like Pilot Quest is a bop, and I think in a way that is also very compelling. You get caught up in that loop of wanting to continue, and I think that music is a huge contributor to that because it is just so catchy.
Honestly, if not for the music, I don't think I would push or be as persistent as I was playing Pilot Quest.
Like all of them are a bop, and then you like when you get into the temples for the first time and you hear the temple theme, it's a little spooky and mysterious, and it's so much lower tempo than everything else, so it really draws you in. But yeah, just like lovely little soundtrack, and I think it really speaks to how much you can say in a game like that without actually saying anything.
Mm-hmm. I think so, and shout outs to that world map theme. So good.
Mm-hmm. So let's move on to our next category, Jorge.
Our next category is best narrative. This is the category where like everyone gets real opinionated about. The nominees are Grimstone, Miasma Tower, Night Manor, and Mortol. The winner is what? It's Mortol. Goodness, that's not expected. That was not expected at all.
Yeah, so we had a conversation the other day where I found like a little, I think it was just like a Substack article that was about um, the lack of good ways to describe game narrative
Oh, yeah,
through
yeah.
gameplay. And I feel they were arguing that games are um, highlighted or like exemplified through having very written stories, and that is sort of denying what games are. I know I
Mm-hmm.
sent it to you. I can pull this up very quick because we're referencing
Oh,
this
I can,
enough
I
where I
can,
feel it
I can
on.
go on and say more about it. But basically, and I really like what they had to say about like when people think of good narrative in games, they usually think of what good narrative is in like film or literature, you know. Uh, and there is very little consideration toward like what a game can do as a unique medium to tell a story. And this is the reason I personally push for Mortol being the winner of this category, is because I think Mortol does tell a story through gameplay in a way that other games they do, but for some reason Mortol impacted me the most because it's
Yeah.
basically a game about, just to go real quick into what you do in this game. Every character you use is an expendable resource. You turn them into either a stone you can hop over, a bomb that can break through obstacles, or you basically make them fly
Yeah, you
toward
turn them
like
into an
the
arrow.
yeah, you turn them into an arrow that can either be an attack or a platform to climb up a higher wall. And the premise of this game is that each character is sacrificing themselves for the country that has been invaded by like demons. And as you play the game, you are literally getting the body count of how many people have sacrificed themselves to progress. That, in my opinion, is telling a story in a quite impactful way, like when you think about it.
Yeah, it's really like it's reflecting something that's a bit nefarious about the society, and like you're in this sort of like cultish, um, you know, like dictatorship,
Mm-hmm.
this theocracy with very little like all you get from that is like a guy posing in a little robe in the beginning, little
Yeah.
intro splash. Like it's doing very little, but you're right. Like you get a vibe of like oh like we're going on some sort of like crusade or something. This is
Yes.
a
Yes.
little are we the baddies?
Yes.
Um,
Are we the baddies? And like again, it's a game. It's used as a game mechanic. So if you think about it as a game, you're like, oh, that's a really neat idea. But if you think about it as a narrative, it's like every character, every time I kill a character and they didn't progress like the cause, I feel like they died in vain. And then suddenly I'm thinking about it. I'm getting philosophical, like, holy shit, the cost of life. I don't know. Mortal got me like that. I don't know how else to say it. It told the story through its gameplay.
yeah, you really are just churning through these people, and I think that says a
Yeah,
lot.
yeah, it's kind of fucked up when you think about it. And there's like little music play, like, and it's like kind of cheerful, like it's a platform stage, and I'm like, people are dying right now. This is
I did get
crazy.
Sophia was very quick. Anytime I was playing Mortal, she would sing along the dun 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 dun, and,
Yeah,
and it's very
the
yeah. Also, to credit this person, I don't know this person of what kind of work they do, but their name is Jake Steinberg. It's on their Substack, and it's called "Gamers Don't Understand Story."
Yeah,
Um,
it's a pretty good article.
and
I think personally I found a little bit of a smug tone in it, but I think what they had to say was very important, and it's something that I think about too. Like
yeah,
when
something
people
we take
talk
for
about,
granted.
yeah, when people talk about stories in games, what are they considering? And you know what? He's right. I don't think people are considering gameplay aspects. I think they're just considering the play-by-play narrative of like what the game is trying to tell you. and not even in a succinct way, just whatever it's just spelling out for you, just like and I'm not even saying this is not a dig on film or literature, because there are the medium of film is a visual one, and it can be used to say things like subtly and into the subconscious, and same with literature. But the problem is that games should not be measured on that metric. They should have their own method of telling stories, and I think that's downplayed, which is what the article is going into.
Yeah. So our next category is Best Mobile Game. The nominees are Overbold, Party House,
came out in mobile.
Seaside Drive,
oh my god,
and Avianos. And our winner is Overbold.
Whoa! Okay, full disclosure, none of these games are on a mobile.
Yeah. Well, we took this as best bite-sized game.
Yeah. Like, what game would work out as a, just a 15-minute session or even 5-minute session kind of game?
Mm-hmm. And we talked about this very briefly earlier, but Overbold is a twin-stick shooter style game in which you are doing a gauntlet of enemies, and the more enemies you fight, the more money you get, and the more money you get, the more upgrades you can buy, which help you in turn fight more enemies until you build up in order to fight a final boss. But I think what makes this game so replayable is that you, after you beat it, you're asked to submit a score based on the money that you didn't spend. So not only is this juggling risk versus reward, but also you're wanting to figure out how much you can get by spending the least amount, and that requires you to get really good at this game and figure out what you actually need to get by.
Mm-hmm. I think the other interesting aspect is that you don't have to get by on spending less. You can also just spawn more enemies and get more rewards. So you can either opt for resource management or you can opt for extremely higher difficulty. I will correct you a little bit. This was twin stick shooters before twin stick shooters were a thing.
Yeah, single stick shooter.
Yeah. So you had to commit to a direction before you fired, which is how the original Super Smash TV plays. Actually, it was just called Smash TV. Not the because that was originally an arcade game. But on the NES, Smash TV played with a single direction button, and that's kind of how this one plays too. Overbold, I mean. This game is my first love in UFO 50, aside from Avianos. This was the other game that I was committed to playing, even on my free time. Instead of progressing through the library, I was no, I want to play Overbold again. Next to Avianos, this game hooked me in. I don't know what it was about it, but I loved it.
Yeah, no, it is a game where I beat it, and I got beating it gets you a gold cartridge, which is a signifier of just beating a game, whatever that means. Yeah. And then there's cherry cartridge, which means you really beat the game, or you 100%ed it, or got some specific achievement. And Overbold I kept just coming back to just to try again, even though I didn't think I'd probably get cherry. It was just really satisfying. So I gotta commend it. And even though Party House we already talked about, but I think it's worth highlighting. Overbold just I don't know, just kept grabbing me. And even though you die and it sucks to do the first 2 or 3 levels over again, it feels so good once you get over that hump and you're a master of this game.
Yeah, and when you're fully upgraded and you have just the right loadout, the gameplay or the game gave you the right discounts on the right items, and you're yes, this is the run. That's such a good feeling.
Yeah, there is some variability, and I don't know if you mess with that dash attack is that's how you do it. You got to get the dash attack.
What? I haven't gotten the dash attack. I got to try it now.
No, the dash attack is because it gives you invincibility frames.
What? Goodness. Okay, yeah. I'm going back to it then.
Yeah.
All right.
So why don't you read our next category?
Our next category is Best Indie, and the nominee is Barbuta. Can you guess who the winner is? It's Barbuta. Here we go.
Bar. I like calling it Barbuta.
I'm just being dramatic.
Oh, you're fine.
Barbuta.
But this is the most bold move they ever could have. Is it's recommended that you play the games chronologically. You can pick whatever game you like. It does not matter. But if you go through the chronological appearance of the games. This is like a side project by the creator of UFO Soft, and it's a weird little game that is clunky and hard and punishing and a little bit cruel to you at times.
Yeah.
And it is the most willing to point out how much games have evolved since the 80s. And I was actually like thinking people would like really hate this one. I've been surprised that how much people have been kind of getting what this game is.
Yeah, me too. Even my brothers Andy and Leo, I flew in home for the holidays this year, and before I flew in, they were telling me all the UFO gameplays or UFO 50 games they played, and they actually beat Barbuta together. Like they went in, like Andy was playing and Leo was taking notes on each like map or each like square of the map. And together they beat it by doing this. And I wish I was there to see that, because that sounds awesome. Like, yeah, that is how you're supposed to play this game.
To put it in perspective, like, this is a game where, like, you're very slow. When you jump, like, you are committed to that jump, and you're really only moving one tile's worth of jump. Yeah. When you swing your little sword, there's no sound, and there's no music in this game either. And when you attack an enemy or maybe a breakable object, there's no feedback. And so it's just it highlights just how much like these are little things that you take for granted, that like when they're not there, it's like, oh, I understand like just how much these aspects of a game are really affecting like my enjoyment and just how I'm able to understand this thing. And you
mentioned it earlier.
I was just saying, it makes it feel just so much more cryptic. But continue.
Yeah, you mentioned earlier how this is like the most, I guess, bold representation of what games used to be. I believe chronologically this is 86 or 85. I'm having trouble remembering, but like the game starts out and you are just kind of thrown in there, no guide. You don't move fast. You don't jump wide, like high or anything. Your attack is, like you said, is extremely limited, and you just have to figure out how to navigate the world with these limitations. And to people, like you said, to people who like play games now, all of these things would seem like limitations and restrictive. Like people would complain, "Oh, well, this moves so slow. Like, why does my attack have such crappy range? Oh, why did I die? Why is there a random trap in this part?" But none of this is shown as like a bad thing. It's shown as like, in the context of UFO 50, this is represented as like the birth of UFO 50. Like this is where they had to start in order to become what they are now. And it pays respects to the rough edges, like I said earlier, like the less flattering aspects of retro gaming that we omit and kind of shy away from whenever we revisit these experiences. We consider this to be like the bad parts of retro gaming, but Barbuta is like, no, this was retro gaming, like bad parts and all, everything is in here, and I really appreciate it for that.
You're able to see also just like it's showing you like the technology of the LX computers and how much they evolve over the course of UFO 50. And so that's a really cool limitation to like see. This is like the bottom of like the clunkiest, lowest processing. Like we can't do screen scrolling, we can't do really any music. Like and it lets you have an appreciation for that. And I think that's a really intelligent thing, especially to start you out with.
This is actually like the love letter to retro gaming.
No, the fact that they started with that, I think it really lands, and I'm surprised at how much people have really cling. They have not bounced off it. They really clung to it.
Right. In a different world, I might have not nice things to say about a game like Barbuta, but in the context of UFO 50, I think it's, in my opinion, it's perfect. It's exactly what it needs to be.
Why don't we go through our next couple categories with a bit more expediency, just like the Game Awards.
Oh, crap. Is Geoff threatening you right now?
He's giving me a little, like, spinning his finger around in a circle.
Oh, he can go take a hike. I don't know. We love you.
But I'll read a couple of our next categories. The best game I'll probably play next year. The nominees are
what is
Grimstone, Golfaria, and Valbrace. The winner is Grimstone.
Grimstone, yeah.
Great game. I just want to put more time into it later.
I'm gonna play it next year. I promise.
It's good. I like fantasy Texas.
Oh god, and I love the characters. That lady with the like in black with the black hat. I forget her name. She's so fucking cool. I want to play a game with her. Anyway, yes.
Best Bell game. The nominees are Campanella, Campanella 2, Campanella 3, and Big Bell Race.
This is literally all the Bell games.
And the winner is Campanella 2.
Wow. Yeah, Campanella 2 is, I think, the best one out of all of them.
Some people just do not like how hard it is, and I agree, but it is just it is very much like it feels like a Spelunky type game. Like I love that it's asking you to really learn, like it's asking you to really master Campanella, and I think it's a cool game, and it just exemplifies so much of what we've already talked about, which is just mastering these games and really learning them.
It adds a layer of gameplay too, where like you can get out of the spaceship and move around. I love that shit. That's like Blaster Master shit. I'm into that. Hey! I want to do the next category.
Okay.
Give me that envelope. Okay.
All right.
The next category is Best Bird Game. That's right. The nominees are Avianos, Cyber Owls, and Elfazar's Hat. And the winner is Avianos. We knew it. Let's go.
Avianos sweep, baby.
Avianos sweep. Now let me tell you something. You know why this won Best Bird Game? Is because you can listen, when you get into one of those combat screens and there's just like 50 freaking birds on screen, that is an insane amount of birds in this game.
It feels so good to have the little like bird swarm just crush the other birds.
Oh man, it does. But then it feels like shit when you go into, because you don't see how many enemies are in a square until you enter combat, and you're coming in there with like 5 dudes, and suddenly the computer has been like just spawning double digit like armies in the just. I don't know how they do it sometimes. And then you get in there and you have to fight 25 birds and you're like, shit, get out of here, run away.
I didn't know what the raise function did, and I went in and fought, like, I knew the enemy had like low forces. I had like this big ball of like archers and soldiers, and I get in there and I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna get all your stuff, and then they use the raise function, and I'm like, oh fuck, and because they just, when you raise, that's one of the options you have in combat for like suggested AI. Is raising, where you just burn all your
you destroy all your resources,
buildings to the ground, and I was like, oh fuck you, like it's such a, it feels awful because they run away immediately after they do that, so that's just like, fine, I guess I win. Jesus.
All right, next up.
Next up is the best quote unquote bad game. The nominees are Onion Delivery, Combat Ants, and Block Koala.
Oh.
And the winner is Combat Ants.
Damn. Well, this is not a controversial take at all. I don't think people like combatants.
So I will say, people generally are ascribing Combat Ants to be the worst one, almost universally. But I think this is actually the best bad game, because I argue that I don't think it's as bad as people are making it out to be. I have gotten gold on this one. Combat Ants, also in the lore, is meant to be like a game that they did under a period of tumultuous management, under a lot of crunch, under direction from a developer that maybe didn't understand what he was asking for. And it's just
Really?
It's a real-time strategy game in which you're getting resources as ants back to a queen to get more soldiers that you can direct with terrible pathfinding and scripting.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
But what I like about this is it's going back to Barbuta, I think it really is something to show, like, when a game is missing these things, like, this is why it's important to have these things. Little pathfinding when your guys get stuck on the edge of a turn, Like, it means so much to see, like, oh my god, this is unplayable. To just have this little thing that you don't have access to. But I think part of its charm reminds me of playing like these older Flash games that are maybe less, more amateur, let's say. And you're playing a game that has the odds stacked against you because like it does not work maybe as intended. And so you have to learn how to cheese the system to get one over on it. It has that level of mastery that feels a little bit more like cheating, and I think that's kind of fun. And some of it is just like brute force and luck, and I like there's a bit of charm to that. It's not a long game. It's brutally slow, but in a way that's almost like methodical. I don't know. I think people are too harsh on it. I don't think it's purposely the bad game. I think it's a game that teaches you how to appreciate it.
But even in the context of the lore of UFO 50, you're saying that this is meant to be one of the rougher experiences.
Yeah, you can see like what these are not simple games, even though they have an 8-bit aesthetic. And like, do you want to see like a game that did not get enough time? Like, here's what this actually looks like.
Gotcha. Well, I should try it out. I actually did not play this one. I only
it's
did a
rough.
little bit. Yeah, I did like the first stage, and I'm like, I don't see what the big deal is. That wasn't so bad. So I should try it out more. Okay.
It does help that the battle music is like really chill. But please continue.
All right. The next category is the best game we felt bad didn't win anything. The nominees are Waldorf's Journey. You know what? I am sad that Waldorf's Journey hasn't won anything. Mortol 2, Rail Heist, and Valbrace. The winner is Rail Heist. Yeah, this is one of the better games in the collection, and I'm sad we don't really have like a winning category for it.
Yeah, it sucks also too because even in this category, I realized we didn't put Vanger, which is like a gravity flipping Metroidvania.
Yeah,
so like
crap.
That game rules.
It
but
does.
Yeah, there's so many cool ideas in this collection. It's like impossible to talk about. Like all of them so comprehensively.
All of these picks are, Waldorf. Waldorf's very straightforward. Like, just you do this one thing game, but it just becomes so complex in just that like single button controls.
Yeah, it's so serene too. But yeah, Rail Heist is a game. I think it gets a lot of talk about it too because it's an immersive sim. It's taking a more modern video game genre and applying it to a more retro aesthetic and more retro limitations.
Oh my god, it does. Yeah.
It's a train heist game where it's sort of turn-based, like but sort of real time.
Yeah.
You're sneaking. It's a stealth game, but as soon as the guards are alert, you get to move for a certain amount of time, and then they get to move for a certain amount of time on a scripted path. And there's just dozens of different ways that the different blocks and items and objects on the train can interact with one another. You can pick up a chicken, and if you jump, you glide with the chicken. If you throw the chicken, it will alert the guards, and they'll become scared and shoot at it. And that'll cause them to unload their ammo, which means that they're vulnerable to not shoot immediately at you.
Yeah.
So, there's so many different ways to play this game, and I think that it's just, I don't know, it's the game developer's game. It's playing with so many cool and complicated and intricate ideas, and I just it's so elegant, and like you can play the different levels by doing different challenges of either non-lethal or fast or
I didn't know that. Wow.
Yeah, that's what the different stars are for. Is I think it's like you do it fast enough. Do it without getting spotted or something like that, and then kill all the enemies.
Damn.
Yeah.
But yeah, this game, like, I'm impressed at what this is one of those games I really can't compare to anything else. Like, it's a hybrid genre, but like, it's so like there's layers of it. It's a stealth game. It's a real-time strategy game. It's an action platformer. Yeah. It's a shooter. It has so much, and it's really well done. Everything works together. Like when I found out that like the enemies take their turn, that to me was like, whoa, this is cool. Like it's an RPG, or sorry, it's a turn-based strategy with like action platformer. I don't know. I have so many nice things to say about Rail Heist. One of the more impressive titles in terms of like craftsmanship and just the things you can do. Like, you don't have to limit a game to a single genre. It can be so much if you just let it.
Yeah, no, just an amazing little game. But our next category is the best game we didn't play, but we gotta give an award to it anyways.
Yep.
The nominees are Final Fantasy Rebirth,
What?
Divers, and
What the
Golfaria.
on,
And the winner is Golfaria. And the winner is Divers.
Yeah, okay. All right, yeah, Divers. Divers was like Divers is one of those games where, like, even more so than Grimstone, I really wanted to like, but I just don't know what happened. Every time I try it, I'm like, I don't know, something just not clicking. Everything about it does well, but something about it is just not doing right. And to save my life, I don't know what it is right now.
Yeah, no, Divers is just like spooky and weird, and just neat. And I don't know if I'm necessarily gonna like stick with it because it is a much slower game, and I think it's more about vibes. But man, is that vibe cool?
It does have the vibes. I don't know what it just does everything right except get me engaged. I don't know what it is. But yeah. I'm excited for this next category.
Oh, go ahead.
The biggest cutie. Who are the nominees? Alpha, Isabel, the climber from Party House. This was me, I'll admit it. She's my favorite. Gwen from the Owl game. The
Cyber Owls, yeah.
I forgot the Owl game's name. Gwen from Cyber Owls and Sephi from the
Hyper Contender.
From Hyper Contender. Thank you. See, this is why you're here, Kyle, because
I know all the cuties.
You know who the winner is? Of course you know who the winner is. We all know it's Alpha.
Yeah, there's some good cute little characters in this game, but Alpha's
she's won the
she's
hearts
got the
of people.
Glasses.
Is that what it is? I think it's the nose. I like her nose.
Yeah, she got a big old nose. She's got the glasses and like the bangs, but then she's also got like battle scars and like some doom armor.
I think they knew. I think the developers knew what they had with this character. That's why she's like almost front and center in the
she's almost the like Pilot is the fictional mascot character, but I would actually say that Alpha is the like real world character.
I don't know if you remember, like Alpha looked very different when the game got first announced. I encourage you to look this up.
I'll have to check that out.
Yeah, but I really like her what they landed on, like for her final design. Like you said, I think it's like they knew what they had.
Yeah.
And I really appreciate seeing all the fan art of her. I'm glad people have embraced this character as like kind of the second mascot of the game. Next to Pilot. Poor Isabel. Maybe she'll get her her chance in the spotlight. But yeah, I really hope I get to draw Alpha one day because I really want to be part of that. She's cool. She's cool. She's got the vibes. It's all we need.
So our next category is Most Faithful Throwback. The nominees are Ninpek, Mooncat, Grimstone, and Magic Garden. And the winner is Ninpek.
Ninpek! This is a category I wanted to talk about because Ninpek is like, to me, aside from Barbuta, Ninpek captures the 8-bit experience so well. Like the transition from arcade to home console and just the aesthetic, the flow of gameplay, the music, the difficulty. Ninpek has everything that I love about retro gaming, more so than Barbuta.
Yeah, what I love too is that like it's sort of a platformer, but it's like existing in that era where like we haven't really figured out how to let people
Mm-hmm.
jump sort of independently. The screen's auto-scrolling.
Yeah.
So it's just... It's playing with like that early language of video games that like we haven't quite figured it out. And it's like the third game. And I think for a lot of people, like, it is the first game that they love. It's very fun to go back on, and it's just a satisfying arcade game. It really just feels good to get a high score in that game.
I think the appeal to me was in, like I said, the flow of gameplay, how the stage scrolls slowly, and as you keep going, it just keeps revealing. Like, there's no real, like, oh, you finished this stage, time for the next one. The transition happens in real time. And that, to me, is such a classic game thing. Like, I don't know if you remember when we were playing, when we got to the cherries that are just floating, and and it's like the bonus stage that's baked into the actual larger stage. I was like, holy shit, I haven't felt this way since like I was a kid. Like, that discovery of like, whoa, why are there cherries everywhere? And
yeah.
it's just
Also,
weird.
as soon as it clicked for us too, it's like this is the bonus level. Like, go, get him.
Yeah, get him. And then like the music changes, and I love that. Like, to me, that was like, oh my, it reminds me of when I first played Mappy. Like, I don't know if you remember Mappy. No, Mappy Land specifically, not Mappy. The NES, there's an NES game called Mappy Land that's based on the arcade Mappy, but it's a platformer version of it. And I remember, to me, that was one of the first games I played where I was like, just enthralled with finding out what the next stage is. Like, I really wanted to beat each stage just to see what the next one looks like.
It's the satisfaction of just seeing the game is its own reward.
And Ninpeg brought me back, like, a thing that so many retro revival games have not been able to do. Ninpeg did effortlessly. So I want to give it an award just for that.
Well, we've gone through a lot of different amazing awards categories and game developers, but it's time for our final category of the evening.
Is it what I think it is?
That's right. It's the GOTY Game of the Year. Jorge, take us away.
Oh my god. Oh, I don't know. I'm nervous. I didn't know it was going to be me. Okay. The nominees are Mooncat, Rock on Island, Rail Heist, Avianos, and Party House. Oh boy, I'm going to open the envelope now. Oh god. Oh, I'm shaking. The winner and Game of the Year is Party House! Did we see this coming? Yes.
It's so interesting because I think a beautiful thing about UFO 50 is that everyone has like favorite and least favorite games, and seeing people go through their lists, they'll have like a choice that's like, oh, this is D tier on like their tier list, and you're like, what are you smoking? And but it's so fun to like, it's so different for people who are like, I don't like puzzle games, so I didn't like this one, but I did like this one. And it's just really charming to see what appealed to people. But I think universally, like, Party House just Party House rocks.
Yeah, like even though it's not my favorite, I've seen it firsthand. Like, well, not only did I go to like Reddit and chats to see like which one people like more, and Party House consistently came out on top, but I watched my brother play Party House for 9 hours, not straight, but his file is in my Steam Deck, and the first game he played on my Steam Deck was Party House until he finished it, like until he gold every challenge. It took him 9 hours, and I'm like, did you really play 9 hours of Party House?
Well, and like I remember telling you, like, oh, you got to try Party House, and it was very fun.
That's one of the first ones you recommended me. Yeah,
it was very fun to see you. Like, you're like, no, don't tell me, and you were like really quickly figuring out the rules, and it was really satisfying to see you. Like, oh, I get money early, and then I buy this guy, and then I expand my house so that I can have more of these guys, and oh no, trouble, and so.
That was me with my brother. I was like, okay, so, and he goes like, no, don't tell me. Like, we're like that, I guess. We don't like backseating, so I just watching him go like, wait, oh, this doesn't, oh, hey, oh, this is a deck building game. I'm like, yeah, you got it. That's all you need to know. Just
it's almost funny that like my number one game was it felt easy to pick because I just love Party House, but like I think the hardest one was like, what's my second favorite? Because they're all just so good. Yeah. All the games have something cool about them.
Yeah, I think if I had to pick a favorite, it is Avianos, just because like of how often I played it and how it was the first game I truly like got hooked into. A lot of UFO 50 games are great, but for some reason Avianos is the one I kept coming back to. That's my pick for.
I think like besides Party House, I think Mooncat for me. It's just weird, and I like the feeling of like having to learn something for the first time again.
I think we both really appreciated Mooncat. We both played it. Doesn't that game have co-op?
It does, yeah.
Oh,
no, and it's great because
cool.
you just either one of you just has to make it. That's all.
Uh-huh.
And I think we played it multiplayer first before we learned what the controls were.
Yes.
And remember, we were like trying to like, what is this game? And then I was like, oh wait. I was like, put your left thumb on left on the D-pad and put your right thumb on circle on the PlayStation controller, or like B on the Xbox controller, so that it's the opposite ends, and then that makes it easier in your brain to go.
That's
left
how
or
I
right.
figured it out. Yeah.
Yeah.
The buttons on the end of the controllers kind of. Your brain reads it as like right and left, so that's how I figured it out. The other game, I think my second favorite is Rock on Island.
It's like I feel bad because like it didn't really get anything, and I do think it does sort of run out of steam once you kind of figure it out. But man, it's a tower defense game, and it just nails that level of like figuring out the optimal puzzle, but also there's just enough player interaction. That like it feels like you're really rewarded for like also
that's what I liked
learning
about
how to play the game.
That's what I liked about it. It was I kind of almost got too frustrated to continue, but the fact that like every stage, I don't know, something told me no, keep going and figure it out. And every stage does this for me. I really want to keep trying at it, and it's a winning formula. This is what makes me like these games, is like when you lose, you don't feel like, damn it, I guess I can't do it. You just feel compelled to keep going. And Rock on Island to me had that the most. I hesitate to look up strategies. I really want to figure it out for myself. And when I do, it's so satisfying. This is why it won over. Because originally my second favorite was Overbold, but Overbold I figured out pretty quickly. I think I got gold on my first day playing it. Rock on Island though is like when it clicked for me, I'm like, oh, this is so good. I want to keep figuring it out. So that's my second pick.
Yeah. So I guess normally in this part of Brain Lords, we would wrap things up with our closing thoughts, where we take a moment to summarize what we've discussed and what we want to take away from this topic. So I think we covered this very thoroughly, but are there any sort of last things you want to say about UFO 50?
I think UFO 50, I'm just going to say it. This was my game of the year. And it's because I have never played a retro game or a game that is in retro style that pays tribute to like the unflattering side of retro gaming. Like the side that a lot of games now shy away from or are kind of afraid to explore and incorporate. UFO 50 embraces even the things that we remember as bad as part of the retro gaming experience. Yeah, and I found that to be so refreshing with games like this.
Yeah, it's part of the history, it's part of the art form, and it's things that I think you should understand, like as a game designer, as an appreciator of video games.
Oh my god,
like,
exactly. Yes. Like I'm sorry, but like when this is something I don't know if we've spoken about this before, but like when I recommend games to people and they're older games, it's really, really hard for me to ask like, hey, just get over like your modern sensibilities and play this old thing. Just experience this thing that is different, even if it doesn't cater to your sensibilities. And UFO 50 is not preoccupied with that. This is what I love about it. It doesn't want to like it'll modernize itself in the right ways, of course, but like it also keeps the things that were not so nice, and you kind of just have to deal with that, and I like that. I don't know, like it is a very true and faithful tribute to retro gaming.
Yeah, no, I couldn't have said it better myself. I think it really it really gets like what it is about retro games that is meaningful. And you know what, like I think it's not just this game though. Like you were like just before this you were telling me about Corn Kids.
Oh, Corn Kids.
And it's just, I think we've kind of, like, a lot of people have figured out that, like, older games have a lot to say, and it's not just nostalgia that is the reason to go back to those aesthetics or those priorities or those methods. So, I don't think it's just UFO 50, but I think it's given me a lens to really appreciate, like, when a game is really pulling on an older style of game making.
When it's deliberate, like when it's doing it on purpose, not just for the sake of, oh, remember pixel art? Oh, remember 8-bit music, chiptune? When it's really like, it comes from the heart. It's like, this is something that was made by people who took these schools of learning to heart and applied them into this game,
Yeah, it's asking you to play it in a certain way. It's asking you to see it in a certain way. And these, older graphics or clunkier styles of controls are signifiers. And what does that mean that you can't, turn as quickly, or you can't, like, scroll the screen? So,
and you said it best. As creators, especially if you're gonna be a game designer, these are things you need to expose yourself to.
Yeah, you need to see why it is that we have the rules that we do.
Yes, like, why is it that, again, like, look at platformers before and after Mario 64. Why is it that even, like, to today's standards, Mario 64 did not age well, but why is it that every game before and after it is different? Like, there's a reason for that. You have to examine these things, and you have to
jumping did not feel good until
moving,
like, Pac-Lands and Mario Brothers, and
even moving didn't feel well until. Oh, anyway, yes. That's my takeaway. I think UFO 50 has a lot to offer. Maybe a little too much, if I have to say anything bad about it, is that it might be a little too dense. But I was so charmed and surprised by how consistently good a game with like 50 games in it is, and then to have like an extra layer to it. It's not just about a collection of games, but rather the experience of playing an old console you've never heard of, the experience of having a library that is accessible to you, how archiving games plays an important role in the preservation of history. Mm-hmm. And also, like, the hidden story of what these developers went through to make these games and why they're not around anymore. All that stuff matters.
I'm really glad that I put the amount of time I did into UFO 50, and I still want to play it a little bit more before I feel like I kind of wrap up or save it for a little bit later. But
yeah,
I don't know if it's my number one game of the year, but God, if it ain't like a special little gem that really makes you appreciate what you got and how far we've come.
Yeah.
That brings us to the question zone.
Welcome to the question zone. Get ready.
We've solicited a number of questions. You can contact us at brainlordspod@gmail.com. And our inquiry, our only inquiry today, is from Greg Melk.
There's one
who asks, more. Excuse me. One of our two inquiries from Greg Melk, which asks...
The Greg Melk.
The Greg Melk asks, what are your games of the year?
Do you want to start or should I?
I'll go ahead and start.
Okay.
I'd like to give an honorable mention to Unicorn Overlord. Unfortunately, I think I was a little disappointed by that game.
Oh.
I am one of the biggest Vanillaware fans.
Me too.
And I love that game, and the gameplay is incredible. But I think the soundtrack is solid. It's pretty good. The character design is amazing, but the story just left me really wanting more. And I think that is something that I'm holding on to a lot more these days. Is that, like, a game's got to really say something, and I felt things through the gameplay. Enjoying unlocking conversations and seeing how, like, the gameplay, the story affected the gameplay. But it's just a very straightforward story with very face value politics, and that just wasn't very interesting to me.
This is like the Vanillaware pattern. Like, they usually hit, like, really good story with one game, and then the next one's just okay.
But going into my actual favorite games of the year, Metaphor ReFantazio.
Oh,
I really like where it's going so far, even though I've only played it for maybe like 8 hours.
that's not a lot.
But without getting into the game, I think it is just incredible that like this is the first fantasy game I've played in a long time that actually felt fantastical, like a world I
Oh
had not
yeah,
seen
yeah.
before.
That's what drew me in with those trailers. Is like, wow, I love this setting. Everything feels like an actual fantasy, not just medieval, not just like sci-fi fantasy, but like actual fantasy.
I found out that they did not try to pull from anything from Lord of the Rings, and they avoided like
Good.
watching or referencing it, and you can tell.
Yeah,
Um,
well, we're done with that. Like, as good as it is, we're done with that. We got to
yeah,
move on.
I loved Astrobot. It was just pure joy.
Oh,
As a
Astro.
game, it's a lovely little game, and it just feels good. And like UFO 50, like you take for granted just um, how much you can say with just gameplay. Um, Mouthwashing was something that's really special. I think a lot of
Oh,
people are going to
mouthwashing.
um, highlight that game and go into
Yeah.
more detail. But like, it just was like we played it together because I heard it was good, and I'm so glad that it just worked out that like it's just a 3 hour experience that you can just play like a movie.
We knocked it out
Um,
in one night. Yeah.
mhm. Of course, UFO 50. I think I am settling. I
Yes.
think that's my number two. Um, but I really got to go out of my way to plug 1000 times resist. That is by far my game of the year.
Wow.
I think I
I
might
should
like it
play it.
more than Signalis last year,
Damn.
or 2 years ago, excuse me.
So
Because speaking of
1,000
like
times resist. I need to play that, man. I promise I will.
yeah, because speaking of games with like politics, like it is an insanely political game. It is saying so many things about like the pandemic, about protests, about like you know
Really?
oh yeah, like there are things in the game that you can and cannot do if
Oh.
you opt to side with the police um,
That's incredible.
or their sympathizers. Um,
I didn't know
it makes
that.
a yeah. Oh my goodness!
So
Like
okay, so how far did we get when we were playing it together?
I want to say there are 10 chapters, and we played through the first chapter, which was like an hour.
What? Oh my god! So I barely got like
Yeah,
into that game. Whoa! Holy crap!
but I
All right,
really it plays like a prestige drama. Like Sophia and I just played like a chapter a night basically, and it was gripping.
that's really cool
Um,
about it. Yeah, yeah. It's a game that looks rough on the surface, but really like there's a lot of thought into like the dialogue, the world building, the story.
Yeah, well,
I
and like without getting into much detail on it,
mm-hmm.
like the criticisms I hear a lot are like the graphics are and the animations are very stiff. Um, but
It's an
and
indie
and
game.
the
Yeah. What
yeah,
do people
and it is
expect?
like they spent their time fully voice acting it instead of like giving it like flourished animations. And then the hub zone is like it's very clunky. You'll find yourself getting lost and a little
Oh,
frustrated.
that I didn't like. Yeah, that hub area is kind
Um,
of a maze.
But I will say, there was a scene later in the game that had way more animation than I was expecting, and I was shocked. My jaw was like dropped, and
I think I know the one you're talking about. Yeah.
I don't think it would have landed. Well, I think I know what you're thinking of, and but that works too. That scene really early on. So I
Mm-hmm.
think the times in which they are over animating are so shocking, and they would only work if the game's graphics were as limited as they were.
Yeah, they
And
feel
like,
special, like how FMV cutscenes used to feel. You know, like
yeah.
oh, something's
Um,
happening, and you pay attention immediately.
and likewise, like there was a moment where I was required to move through the hub very quickly, and I felt like I had finally learned how to like get around it,
Mm-hmm.
and I felt really rewarded for that. So,
Yeah.
um, it's all of its like I feel like it's the kind of game where just everything kind of had to be exactly the way that it was, and it affected me very profoundly. And it's a game that I've been thinking of for a long, long time. So, if you're hearing this and if you liked mouthwashing, really strongly consider playing this game.
Mm-hmm.
If you like story based games, and
I do.
if games like or just pieces of media like Life is Strange, the hub zone of Mass Effect, Nier Automata, Signalis, 13 Sentinels, if these are things that you,
Ooh.
Arrival, the movie, if these are things that you resonate very strongly with, like, there are a lot of things that I think may potentially affect you very profoundly, especially if you are, or know, or playing it with anyone that is a, like, first generation immigrant, or is it first generation where you're the child of a, um, anyways, if you are if you were the child of someone that moved to the United States, um, it deals with some heavy stuff. So yeah, I really can't recommend 1,000 Times Resist strongly enough. Jorge, do you have any? I'm sorry to take up the floor so much. Do you have any?
No, I feel like
Uh,
I like that you brought up Thousand Times Resist. I think it's a game worth mentioning. I hope that because it got I don't know if you saw it got a crossover with Balatro.
yeah, I think
Uh,
of the games that tend to get overlooked, I think 1,000 Times Resist is really getting a second win from all these recommendations. They literally said they saw a spike in sales when they got snubbed on Game Awards nominations.
that's good. That's good. But yeah, I recommend it too. I didn't play as much as you did. I think you finished it all the way through. I only played about an hour, but what I played was impressive. It was, I went in expecting one thing, and so will you. You're gonna see the trailer, you're gonna see the videos, and you're gonna be like, oh, it's just like a da 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 da. You're gonna play it, it's not gonna be at all like that. And I promise you, it's worth it. I really want to get through with it more. I did catch the immigration or the immigrant themes in it. By the way, first generation immigrant is someone who immigrated to the United States. Well, in the context of us living in the United States, is someone who immigrates to a country, but was not born in that country. That's a first generation immigrant. Uh, and then second generation is someone who is born from parents of the first generation.
Thank you, thank
Anyway,
you.
yes, just wanted to let you know that. But yes, Thousand Times Resist is a game we've both been championing because it's like the kind of thing we want to see more in games today. And also the fact that it's made by a smaller team is very important to us as creators. Like, we should support these things. We should advocate for this kind of content and media. We don't want overly corporate controlled stuff anymore. Just us personally, we just feel like we're moving slowly away from that because we want things like this to exist, which is what brings me to my Game of the Year picks. I want to say, I think I already said it earlier, but UFO 50 was my Game of the Year, and anything I have to say about it at this point is belabored. We know how I feel, but if you're here and you're still not playing UFO 50, I want you to turn this off and stop listening to podcasts. Anyway, so if I had to pick like a second Game of the Year, it's honestly mouthwashing, and I kind of feel like a bit of a normie saying that, even though even though it's not even the indie normie pick of the year, because a lot of
Yeah,
people now have been playing mouthwashing, But what I love about this game, I didn't necessarily like this game. Like, a lot of themes in this game are very rough, and they're kind of hard for me to get into. But what I love about this game happened after I finished it. Every person I talked to who finished this game had a different experience with it. And every person had like a different effect. What hit them in terms of like what was horrifying is different depending on who you are. And as soon as that started happening, I was like, oh shit, this is amazing. Like, I want more games like this. I want things like this. Everybody, like, there is no objective experience to mouthwashing. You can't go to a YouTube and look up, well, please explain the ending to me. Because it's supposed to be a subjective experience. You're supposed to the explanation to what's going on is within you. You're supposed to feel what you feel, and that is what the game means to you. That is how you interpret the message. It challenges you that way, and I love that about it. Like, even though I found it personally a little rough, kind of difficult to get through some parts, there are some
some
gameplay
elements are
elements
very
that are just
clunky.
like, yeah, and then there's like one gameplay part that I just didn't really like at all. But the fact that like everyone I talk to is like, well, this is the part that scared me. I'm like, oh, that's crazy. Like, I like that a lot.
Yeah.
I think it deserves a lot of praise for that.
Yeah, no, to speak to like how differently it affects people, like I've gone out of my way to look for like discussions and dialogues and interviews, and there's actually been quite a bit, and yeah, like as much digging as I've done, I've seen almost no one talk about like the corporate side of the horror, about like I've seen no one do a deep dive on the public domain pro union cartoons that are in the background of some scenes, and so there's like it's not a solved game, and I love that about it. There's so much to dig into.
That's the angle I got from you, was like the anti-corporatist angle or corporatist angle, and like the pro-union and the and like how the game itself like is a pun to the like corporate overreach and just abuse of people who are just trying to make a living or trying to survive, in this case literally. That's kind of the angle I got from you. I'm like, oh shit, that is, yeah, this is a big part of it. And me personally, the thing I got from it was the responsibility angle, where it's like, yeah, even like I think, I don't know if I should get into spoilers a bit, but like there's a character that is like a horrible thing happens to them and they must assume responsibility, but they can't. And it's just like, it's an interesting struggle, you know, like I don't know how to say it without spoiling it, and I won't, because I want people to play this, and I want them to have like a very personal experience with it. But that's what I took from it, was like, oh shit, like even if shit sucks, there is a degree of responsibility we need to take, and that befalls on all of us, no matter who. And that's what I took from it. But again, that's different from when someone else took, you know, like it this is the thing I love about mouthwashing. And again, it's not a game that I would necessarily gravitate towards in normal circumstances, but the fact that who you are defines the experience you have with this game and defines what the meaning of this narrative is brilliant. And I want more things like this. This is why I gave it second place in my game of the year.
Yeah. I had a revelation just yesterday that I had not considered, even though it's like, maybe I thought about it, but like either way, I heard someone point out that like you can tell mouthwashing is working because it hurts.
Yeah, that's a line in the game
when it hurts you. Yeah,
and that's a line in the game. Oh my god. Okay. Yes.
Yeah, maybe I forgot about it, but like
we'll have a mouthwashing video.
Yeah. There's so much going on. Goodness.
I know. I don't know why. So I have some episode notes here. I don't know why it says Rebirth here. Am I supposed to talk about this, Kyle?
I mean, I didn't know if you wanted to mention Rebirth or not, but
yeah, because this is the other big game I played this year. I'm gonna be as nice about it as possible. I was not a big fan of Rebirth. I loved Remake. Final Fantasy VII Remake was one of my favorite games. Actually, it might have been my game of the year when it came out. But Rebirth, for some reason, did not hit the right way for me. I think it unfortunately has a lot of aspects of modern gaming that I don't want, comparing to UFO 50, how we were kind of bemoaning Pilot Quest's modern sensibilities of how gameplay seems like to be artificially padded to be longer, I guess. Or at least like how progress is walled behind certain things that feel artificial. And that's that's one of the ways I felt about Rebirth. I feel like this game just wants to be as giant as possible without really doing much. You know what I mean? Like, and I'm trying to make what is essentially a 2-hour explanation of why I don't like this game to basically 5 minutes, so bear with me. But for all the good this game does, I feel like it's the most succinct way I can put it is you were invited to someone's house for a meal, for dinner. And you arrive, you sit down at the table, and the table is a feast presented to you. Is it just everything this person made for you is at the table, and you're the only guest. And you start eating. You're like, oh my god, thank you. This is amazing. I can't believe you did all this for me. you start eating, and you're like, oh, the chicken's bland, but you can't complain because this person made food for you. So you're like, okay, well, let me try the mashed potatoes. They're undercooked. You're like, oh, they're grainy. What the hell? Okay, well, let me try some. And you keep eating these different plates of food this person made for you, and they're all mid. But you're like, you feel bad. You're like, I don't want to complain because they made all this food for me. This was the Final Fantasy VII Rebirth experience for me. It was just like, I don't like any of the things this game is doing, but I feel like I'm not supposed to complain because there's just so much of it in there. And that made me not like the game. I feel like, and again, there's like one or two good things in there. Yeah, I tried the apple pie. Hey, the apple pie was pretty good. That's the only thing I like. Because there is good things in it, but it's just, to me, it was just like weighed down by like all of the fluff and all of the padding and all of the just bloating of the game just to make it the game of the year. I really, really think Square Enix wanted to win game of the year with this thing, and that's why they went all out. And I'm sorry, but I'm glad they didn't win. In fact, I'm glad they only won one award out of the 7 other ones they got nominated, because I think it's time they drink a little bit of the humble juice. I was really disappointed with this game. Again, I don't know why it's on here, but there you go. I talked about it. It's the big game of 2024 I played, I guess. And as hyped as I was for it, at the end of the day, I was very disappointed in the approach and the storytelling. I didn't like the things they wanted to do. They promised me like a unique and different approach to the story, and it just kind of went back on all of these things it promised. It's like if Rebuild of Evangelion, like in the middle of it, just went back and was like a remake of Evangelion. I don't know if you've seen those movies.
I mean, a little of them. I've not finished them.
Yeah, so Rebuild
I know largely.
Yeah, the first movie is like 1-to-1, the same anime, but then it completely shifts directions and does a brand new thing, which is what I was hoping Rebirth would do. But for all of the things it does, it just wants to go back. It just wants to go back, and it just wants to go into Advent Children. It just wants to be the old thing all over again. And okay, no more. I will be here all fucking night. I'm sorry.
I have heard that, yeah, it wants to be Rebirth, but it's Westworld.
Okay.
Here's a question for you. Would it be your game of the year if Queen's Blood was just Party House?
But Queen's Blood is good. Queen's Blood is one of the good things in it. Like, Queen's Blood is one of the... This is what I'm saying. Like, if this game just had... this game doesn't need to be what it wants to be. It just needs to be what it is, like, what it can. Like, there's so much in it that they can just condense down into, and it would actually be a great game. But no, it just wants to be everything. It wants to be Fall Guys. It wants to be Mario Kart. It wants to be Horizon Zero Dawn. Like, it just wants to be the standard of every freaking game that's like out right now, so that it can win awards. Okay, sorry, no more. I will be here I literally will be here all night. What our next question comes from the guy at the GameStop yesterday.
Yeah.
He asks, why did Astrobot win? I thought this was a controller tutorial. This is an actual thing that happened to me when I went.
That's true, yeah.
When I went to buy Astrobot for myself. Kyle, what do you think?
I mean, it has been funny, like, explaining to my coworkers who didn't really know anything about Astrobot, and they're like, yeah, I hadn't even, like, seen this game. And I had to, like, express to them, like, no, it is actually really, really good. It really is, like, all killer, no filler. It is a game that is, like... I have a friend from out of town coming over tomorrow, and I'm so excited to show them a level that involves shrinking and growing. That is just astounding, the level of detail they added into this level. And there are so many levels you can say with that are like, that give this like, oh yeah, to the people that know them, of like, oh, there's the night and day level that's like, oh yeah, that one.
That's really good, yeah.
But some levels are just like, you just go down a slide on this one, and it's just really fun. There's not anything to collect on the path. It just looks really satisfying when all the different size balls go down the slide. Really fun.
Balls going down the slide.
Yeah. it's just delightful, and I think like I think it did really well critically, and I think it also just was a game that enough people were able to agree on. It doesn't necessarily need to be like the most groundbreaking game, like how much of a triumph Baldur's Gate 3 was. I think it
Oh,
may
I
be
see. Yeah.
a little like, which don't get me wrong, like it is a joyous like piece of work, but maybe it could be closer to something like an It Takes Two, where sort of everyone could agree that it was something special that year, whereas
Yeah,
the other
yeah.
games were a bit more derisive or
Or
divisive. But yeah,
yeah, and I think I agree. Once I started thinking about it more, how Astrobot doesn't feel like a game of the year kind of game, but I think it deserves to be celebrated because it brings games back. Because
yeah.
I don't know if, you know what I mean, right? Like it
You don't see a lot of
who
platformers like this anymore, especially at this
exactly.
level.
Exactly. It's a love letter to like Sony's history, and low key the developers admit it. It's a love letter to like 3D platformers like Mario 64. Like this kind of thing I feel is missing in games now. Like the game that is just a game. Like just be a game and do exactly what you need to do. And I think that is worth celebrating. I actually commend the fact that Astrobot won because of this reason. I don't want bloated games anymore. I just want games to be what they are, and just say what they have to say and say it concisely and get to the point. Like, and if there's flourish, then make it fun, make it great, which is what I think Astrobot does. Like, every time I see little like little screenshots of it, I'm like, oh, I want to play that. Like that looks neat. And I remember
It's
really
very
liking
neat.
the one that is actually a controller tutorial. I remember really liking that, and I 100%ed it. Like it's
Yeah, it was surprisingly good.
mm-hmm. So I
Um,
think it deserved it. I think it had it. I think it earned it.
no, absolutely. Well, it's been a long episode because we covered so
Oh
much, but
my! It might be our longest episode to
it
date.
definitely is. But that's just how Game of the Year episodes tend to be.
Yeah.
But I'd like us to end with a trip to the Rec Room, where we recommend something inside and outside the world of gaming that might complement our panel. I think we've recommended an absurd number of video game things.
Yeah, we can skip that.
I'm gonna keep this pretty short because it's just been a long episode. I'll just keep it cute too. I would recommend if you haven't cooked with Lao Gan Ma, you should cook with that stuff.
Oh.
It is a Chinese chili oil specifically. There's different types, but the spicy chili crisp one, it's just like good sauce.
That's a
It
really
just
good. That's a really interesting recommendation. Can you spell it out
um
the name?
Lao
Uh huh.
Gan
Mm-hmm.
Ma. You'll know it because there's this like because there's this old guy on the front. He looks very like he's thinking about all the
Oh.
different delicious foods.
Thinking
I think
about
it
what he's
literally
gonna
means
feed you.
grandma too.
Nice.
But yeah, you can get a lot of Asian grocery stores, and it's just good. It just makes all your stuff good. You can put it in like soups and stocks and like just on your rice. It's just good.
I'm
And
glad. This is a really cool recommendation. Thank you.
yeah, I don't know. We've been talking so much. I just wanted to keep it a little simple.
Yeah, I'll keep it simple too. I really liked Transformers One.
I heard that was a nice movie.
You know what? I watched it and I'm like, oh, I like animated movies. I think animated movies are good. If you really wanna, if you wanna see like if you wanna watch like a really competent animated film, not by Disney, Transformers One, and if you're a Transformers fan, it's actually one of the better movies that has come out in a while for this franchise.
Yeah, I have heard that it's one of the best movies since 84, which is saying a lot.
86, 86.
86, excuse me.
Yeah. 86. I would actually, the last good Transformers movie I think is Bumblebee, the standalone Bumblebee movie.
Yeah, I heard it was
Um,
good.
but then after that, we got an okay movie, Rise of the Beast. But then Transformers 1, and it's a shame because like it didn't do well in theaters. This is why I'm recommending it, because like this movie had really bad marketing. It was kind of advertised as like a yet another like funny animation movie. Like, oh look, they're quipping and they're saying smart ass things. But no, it's like in Act 2, the movie actually wants to tell a story, wants to tell something, wants to say something. And by Act 3, you're caught in a like moral dilemma with these characters, and it's compelling. it's very good. It's very interesting, and it looks amazing too. So I recommend it. Please watch this movie. Hasbro does not want to fund any more Transformers movies because all they listen to is money, and we need to stop that. It's really ironic that they decided to just not make any more movies after the last one is so good. You know, it's really upsetting. So there you go. That's my recommendation.
Well, this has been Brain Lords. You can find us on Twitter at BrainLordsPod, probably on Blue Sky as well by the time this airs.
Let's go.
You can find me on social media as Cute Monster Props or on my website, cutemonsterprops.com. Jorge, where can they find you?
You can find me in the gutter. You can find me on Blue Sky too. I actually just got one. J-Man Velez. That's JMANVELEZ. At whatever Blue Skies at. They got this not right. You know, if there's something I need them to fix, is their fucking linking shit. But yeah, J-Man Velez, just like anything else. I just activated my account there. It's been fun. I think you should come with us. You should ditch the other social media platforms that will not be named because they're ass and garbage. So,
well, questions, comments, and inquiries can go to brainlordspod@gmail.com. And you can find us on YouTube and all other places where podcasts are born. Thanks for listening. Now go prove the justice of our culture and go rescue heroes. And also play forever.
Play forever.
Ronaldinho, success!